Archlich finally turned the thriving kingdom into ruins. His army of undead didn't spare a single human in sight and shredded them to pieces. The only person left standing on humanity's side was the Empire's strongest swordsman, Eos, who already looked worse for wear and was on the brink of giving up. But this story isn't about that knight, nor is it about the Archlich. It's the story of Damien Haxon, working under Archlich's command as his Death Knight. He was just a normal human until Archlich cast dark magic and took control of him. But before Archlich could savor the crown he earned after countless deaths, my guy had already broken free from Archlich's control. He unleashed an attack that struck Archlich right in the chest, so hard even his demon generals couldn't shield him. Damien Haxon had finally moved with his own will, much to Archlich's shock, who had erased Damien's consciousness completely. But as fate would have it, Archlich was never able to fully factory reset our boy's mind. Some part of his soul and mind stayed intact, dormant in his head, watching his own body out of control. Under Archlich's command, his demon generals launched an attack on Damien, only to get obliterated by a single strike from him. In a last-ditch effort, Archlich played his trump card and summoned God knows how many undead. The entire horde charged toward Damien, aiming to claim his life. But once again, all it took was a single hand gesture to incinerate the undead into smithereens. Seeing this, Archlich could tell his end was near. He had unintentionally created a monster so peerless it could rival the gods themselves. To save his own skin, which Archlich didn't really have, he started smoothing things over with mere words. Deep in mind, even if he failed to sway Damien with talk, he planned to transfer his soul into another vessel. I don't think Damien was going to let this bastard off the hook, at least not after losing the people he loved. To kill this sack of bones, Damien went so far as to create a technique that severs souls themselves. At first, Archlich refused to believe such a technique existed. Still, he tried to make a run for it before it was too late. But it was already too late, because my guy had finally unleashed his final strike, hitting Archlich squarely in the chest. At first, nothing happened, much to this bony head's relief, convinced the technique was just a bluff. But he soon learned it wasn't. Some painful magic mojo took hold, and he exploded right there, leaving only his empty skull behind. Even that remaining skull was crushed to bits by Damien. With his revenge complete, Damien lost the will to live. He literally killed his own family while under that bastard's control. He brutally slaughtered them, while some part of him helplessly watched his loved ones die. The only way he could reunite with those he killed was after death. With that in mind, he took his own life. But it wasn't the end. His prayers were heard, and he opened his eyes again. The person in front of him waking up is his sweet older sister. Bro thinks he is in heaven, watching his sister, though the unusual thing is that she looks way younger. She overhears him calling her younger and is flattered right on the spot. For a moment, she thinks he is trying to get on her good side, just so she can save him from their father's scolding. Being the good sister she is, she agrees to save his ass in desperate times. She eventually runs off to the mansion, not before telling him to get inside since it will soon start raining. Damien takes note of the mansion standing tall right in front of him, the same mansion he had burned down to ashes. He is clueless about what is happening. The closest thing to describe his condition is that he is dreaming. Or maybe everything he had endured in the past was just a big dream, and he has finally woken up in reality. But he is sure he will find out soon enough. He grabs a tree branch off the ground and stands in front of a giant rock to unleash his knightly prowess he had while he was acting as Death Knight. He takes his stance, and with the help of his past teachings, he pokes the hard rock with that mere tree branch. For a second, nothing happens. Then the giant rock shatters into bits and pieces, confirming that what he went through in the past wasn't just a vivid dream. This realization cracks him up, causing him to pull a classic light Yagami laughing pose. He slumps down after laughing so hard, the weight of realization sinking in. What he is witnessing isn't a mere dream, nor was his past experience just a dream. He has returned to the past, a realization that hits him deeply. Let's have a little background on Damien's life at his current age. As far as Damien could recall, he was a clown who always brought shame to the family name with his antics. His father was always there to remind him how pathetic and loser-like a son he was, someone who only contributed by tarnishing the family's name. His antics only brought misery to the people around him. He stomped all over his family's future and even made sure their household's properties got confiscated. Because of his talent for bringing shame and ruin, his father kicked him out. Among all the family members, the only person who still saw Damien in a positive light was his older sister. He never understood why she was always so supportive and concerned, even though he ruined her life by destroying her engagement. Before he left, she offered him some money to ease his journey. He hesitated, but eventually snatched the sack of money and ran away as fast as he could, because he could barely look at her without getting embarrassed. After running away from the family, he finally realized how wrong and cursed his existence really was. The shame and guilt gnawed at him, causing him to have profound, Back in the present, Damien sits on his knees, racking his brain, trying to figure out what triggered his regression. Sure, he wanted to apologize to the rest of his family, but to think his prayers were actually heard, that he really came back to the past is kind of insane. Only a divine miracle could explain this. He looks down at his trembling hands, still shaking from the recoil of the technique he just executed. The technique is called wave breaking, a move that amplifies the impact of a blow several-fold. He learned it after defeating the knight known as the Castle Wall Destroyer. Suddenly, a familiar voice grabs his attention, a concerned servant calling out to him. The guy is clearly here with urgent news. Otherwise, he wouldn't be dragging his heavy body all the way out here in a full sprint. Damien knows he's from the household staff, but for the life of him can't recall his name. Then the name finally surfaces in his mind. Perhaps he is Victor. Victor confirms his name and immediately questions why his young master is still loitering out here, even though Lady Louise personally came to fetch him. According to the servant, the patriarch is boiling with rage right now. Damien, meanwhile, has no freaking clue what he even did to piss his father off this much. But we're about to find out. Back at the Hoxton Viscounty, the patriarch's furious and thunderous voice echoes through the mansion. The man is so pissed that he tries to strike Damien on the spot with an improvised swing. Luckily, Damien dodges just in time, thanks to his honed skills as a knight. Just then, his mother and sister rush in and arrive in the nick of time, grabbing hold of the patriarch before he actually shreds Damien to pieces. Turns out, our boy got kicked out of a bar for causing a massive commotion, once again staining the family name. The whole town is already talking about how the Hoxton heir is a good-for-nothing troublemaker. If it weren't for the mother and daughter duo, the old man probably would have cracked Damien's skull open right there. They're both trying to smack some sense into the furious father. Meanwhile, Damien is having a moment of reflection. He can't even remember the last time he got scolded like this. But now that it's happening, weirdly enough, he feels alive. Let's do some quick introductions. The angry old man is Paul Deesburn Haxon, the mother is Merlita Haxon, and the sister, his sweet saving grace, is Louise Haxon. It might be chaotic out here, but Damien missed this so damn much in his past life. Tears start leaking from his eyes, totally uninvited. The family stares in disbelief. Their son crying like this? That's seriously unheard of. Even Deesburn simmers down a bit. Before delivering punishment, he gives his son a chance to explain himself. But Damien's got nothing. No excuses, no deflections. Well, this response comes out as a shocker to his father. As far as his family is concerned, Damien is the guy who used to weasel his way out of everything with lame excuses. But now, he owns up to everything. He admits he brought disgrace to the Hoxton name. It's all his fault, and he's not ashamed to say it. Deesburn lets out a long sigh. This isn't how things usually go. Still, he's not sure if a bit of sincerity his son is showing is enough to let him go off the hook. With all due respect, Damien says he's ready to make up for what he did. He's willing to do whatever it takes to fix the damage and salvage the family's honor. And once he's done that, he's ready to face any punishment his father sees fit. The declaration leaves his family stunned. He sounds like a completely different person. The father even wonders if the boy hit his head or something. Scene cuts to Merchant City Landwork. Victor and Damien are sneaking toward the pub. The servant is visibly tense, full of apprehension. He's not sure this is a good idea. There are rumors that the pub is backed by a syndicate. If that's true, things could get ugly. But Damien, who was once a fearless death knight, just walks past his servant, casually giving him permission to head back if he's that scared. Victor, ever the loyal servant, shakes his head. He's duty-bound and isn't about to leave his master, especially not because of fear. Damien reassures him that they are only here to talk to the pub owner and sincerely apologize for the mess he caused last time. He just wants to make things right. As he walks, he hopes everything goes as smoothly as he's picturing in his head. He doesn't know how or why he came back to the past. But if some god really gave him a second shot at life, he's not about to waste it. If he wants to break the curse of always ruining his family's future, he has to start taking bold steps. Once he stands in front of the pub's gate, two thugs immediately take notice. They recognize the face and respond cockily and aggressively. Damien can't remember them clearly as it's been so long, but they do look familiar. Without getting aggressive himself, he keeps his tone calm. He lets them know that he's only here to apologize for the chaos he caused during his last visit. The two thugs freeze for a second, unsure how to react. When his words finally sink in, they burst into laughter. To them, it's hilarious to see Damien, the so-called disgraceful heir, suddenly acting polite and respectful. They've always seen him as the shitty elder son of a shitty household. But now, they're forced to admit he doesn't seem that bad. Damien just stands there, silent, listening to them yap. Then they take it too far. They bring up his sister and start saying vile, disgusting things about her. They're willing to accept his apology, under the stipulation that he introduces them to his sister. Creepy bastards leave no doubt about how trashy they are. And just like that, it stops being about apologies. Damien swipes a dagger from one of them so fast that the guy doesn't even realize it's gone. Originally, Damien just wanted to say sorry and leave peacefully. But turns out, he doesn't have that much patience after all. With a clean, precise swing, he severs one of their hands completely. The guy drops to his knees, screaming in agonizing pain once his brain registers what just happened. The other one immediately draws his sword, though he's visibly flinching. Damien's killing instinct kicks in. The dormant death knight inside him begins to surface. And let's not forget Victor in the background, absolutely losing his mind. He's crying out, dreading what's about to go down. The screams of the injured thugs soon grab the attention of passers-by. One guy gets curious about the fight, while the other decides to keep walking before they get caught up in this mess. The thug who still has both hands tries to intimidate Damien with a few shallow threats. He brags about the gang he belongs to, the Black Snake. No one walks away unscathed after messing with Black Snake. Looks like these aren't just random street thugs after all. Even Damien has some memory of this faction. Black Snake is an organization expanding its influence in landwork around this time. And this pub is one of their spots. When Damien complained about their overpriced food back in the day, the only thing he got in the feedback was a brutal beating. Not just beaten, they humiliated him in front of everyone there. Now that he thinks about it, he's the one who actually deserves an apology, not the other way around. Back to the fight, the thug makes it clear that being a noble won't save Damien from the consequences he's about to face. He finally lunges with his sword at full strength. Damien just takes a step back, trips the thug over his feet, and lets the bastard eat dirt. Before he can even finish coughing and get up, Damien's already on him with his dagger. The bastard should be grateful he's only about to lose a leg. If it weren't for his family, wiping these guys off the face of the world wouldn't be hard. With that threat clear, Damien slices off the thug's leg, making him double over in pain. More thugs show up, drawn by the screams. They also seem to be a little shaken seeing the brutality that unfolded there. Only one of the thugs is courageous enough to stand right at the front, while the others hide behind him. He demands to know which organization Damien belongs to, and where he's from. Obviously, Damien denies any ties to any gang. As for why he's here, he is here just to apologize. Though after thinking it over, he figures he should be the one getting an apology. He also has a complaint for the pub owner. This sassy dude isn't willing to entertain Damien's requests. All they want is his identity. Since he's not telling, they fear they'll have to make him speak. The leader orders his goons to charge. The brainless thugs rush at Damien, unaware of what's coming. Damien doesn't even feel like wasting time on these small fries. He takes a deep breath and zips past them with sonic speed, slicing off hands that were never meant to wield swords against him. One dash later, 3 guys are down. Damien is seriously rocked, while the leader of the thugs is absolutely shocked, though that quick dash took a little toll on his young and fragile body. Still, he's got enough strength left to finish off the guy in front of him, and he's ready. The bastard tries to beg for mercy, offering an apology if Damien's willing to forgive. But it's clear this whiny little bitch isn't getting any mercy, at least not until Damien claims one of his limbs. The scene quickly shifts inside the pub, which is brimming with life. But the mood changes fast when everyone notices the whiny guy standing petrified near the entrance. Poor bastard couldn't outrun his doom. As his body falls to one side, Damien stands there, all eyes on him. He wipes blood from his cheek while the customers, who were enjoying their drinks seconds ago, scatter for their lives. Good thing that unnecessary nuisance left right away, leaving Damien alone to settle his score with the pub owner. The owner stands above in the corridor, furious about the noise. More than anything, he's mad there's no guard in sight. This bar owner looks like some goofy character straight out of One Piece. His name's Anderson Holm. Damien only adds salt to the wound by casually revealing he already took down the guards Anderson's talking about. The weight of the situation finally sinks into Anderson's mind. It's unbelievable that someone defeated members of Black Snake. He demands Damien explain why he's causing such a mess and disrupting his business. And more importantly, who he even is. Damien introduces himself without hesitation. He clears the air. He never meant to cause trouble. All he wants is a sincere apology from the owner. The place is way overpriced, and he's already filed a complaint before. The only feedback he got was a humiliating beating and being thrown out like a dog. Everyone misunderstood him and assumed he was the troublemaker. This misunderstanding hit his family's honor hard, causing some serious losses. Anderson, the big mustache dickhead, still hasn't realized what kind of situation he's in. Instead of feeling contrition, he mocks Damien and his family. He's heard the Haxon Viscounty has no honor left anyway, which is something this clown finds quite laughable. What's even funnier is that Damien actually expected him to apologize. Seems like my guy had already been expecting this exact response out of this bastard. Initially, he was planning to spare this bastard once he had apologized sincerely. But now, he's got the perfect excuse to exact a juicy revenge he's been craving. He won't forgive this bastard talking trash about his family. In a split second, Damien maneuvers so fast he reaches the bastard standing on the first floor. With the dagger aimed straight, he's ready to yank this bastard's innards out. But it seems like our boy got carried away and let his guard down. Some guy rushes in, bringing a heavy sword down on Damien, knocking him back to the ground floor. The strength behind the blow is insane. The mysterious guy's name is Ted, someone Anderson's been waiting for to intervene. Damien admits this guy's got serious grit. With the strength he's packing, this gets our guy wondering how someone like Ted ended up working at such a third-rate place. Now, he's very curious to learn why a knight of this caliber is even here at all. Let's talk about the knights for a moment. The glorious warriors of honor walk the path of martial arts throughout their lives. There's a hierarchy for them, starting off as a trainee and then an apprentice knight. Finally, they become an official knight when their skill level allows for it. The official knights are recognized as warriors capable of utilizing aura, to the point that they're mountain-level warriors, capable of cutting down dozens of creatures ahead of them. They can even cut through castle walls without breaking sweat. In other words, the knights of this story are pretty damn strong. So strong, in fact, that they're considered as transcendent beings. That's actually the reason why the bar owner is out here giggling like a lunatic, because he's damn certain of his victory. Even though Ted is an apprentice knight, he swears allegiance to the leader of the Black Snake organization. With Ted's involvement, the bar owner is confident that our boy won't be able to leave this place in one piece. And yes, the one piece is real. Damien stands on business, confidently questioning Ted's rank. He can finally understand why he felt a hint of aura in their previous clash. But his revelation just now astonishes Ted, who can't believe that someone as insignificant as our boy was able to sense his aura, even when he did his best to conceal it. Thinking about it for a minute, Damien pieces together the reason why Ted even bothers working in a shitty place like this. He thinks that Ted wasn't considered good enough to become an official knight, and was tossed out from the ranks, leaving him no place to go. The verbal assault has already chipped the knight's armor, while the bar owner tries to calm him down by addressing payment. Hearing the word apprentice attached to his rank, Ted's blood starts boiling. Pissed as hell, he bursts with incredible speed to slice down the arrogant noble's mouth, in an effort to punish him for being disrespectful. But without fearing for a thing, our boy simply stands there as Ted's blade is about to slice him down. He evades the heavy strike at the very last second, which means if he hadn't dodged the attack, the enraged apprentice knight would have sliced him in half. Preparing himself for a second attack, the apprentice knight unleashes his swings at Damien. While our boy is dodging without much difficulty, he's starting to grasp on his opponent's skill. From the looks of it, Ted doesn't appear to be an average apprentice knight, demonstrated by his sword ability and precise swings. Bursting with fury, the apprentice knight unleashes a wide slash, which is easily evaded by the young master. Despite possessing some of his combat ability from the future, Damien is having to struggle with his body's physical limitations. He can't make the best out of his current state, and it's a learning moment for him to prioritize managing his stamina. The apprentice knight is getting frustrated that none of his attacks are connecting, so this time, he goes batshit crazy and imbues his body with a glimmer of aura. Realizing what's coming his way, Damien predicts his opponent's secret technique. The apprentice knight launches a linear sword strike, coated with immense power. As the blade is about to pierce his body, Damien calms down, even in the face of imminent death. He wants to respond with a technique of his own, one that can counteract it successfully. Recalling his traumatizing days as the Death Knight, he remembers facing the legendary killer, the one known as the Blade of Death. This assassin was revered as a force of nature, so the Death Knight came to face him. The phantom assassin immediately pointed his blade at the monstrous-looking knight, stating that his intentions of killing him if he didn't run off. Realizing that the Death Knight wasn't going to comply, a sinister side evoked inside of the phantom assassin. The bloodthirsty beast was thrilled to find yet another target to kill. In fact, he wanted to use his secret technique to give a performance unlike any other. Thanks to his perceptive eyes, he was able to analyze the vital points of a human body, utilizing the water inside of it. And then he unleashed the ultimate Kit Kat technique, which he probably learned from Sukuna, slicing down on the Death Knight's body. The best part? He did all of that using a basic wooden sword, which shows the greatness of his technique even more. The Death Knight's torn body rested on the ground, while the phantom assassin celebrated his victory. Little did he know that the Death Knight wasn't going to die that easy. In fact, when he turned around, he saw doom. The creature's body was linking back together, his flesh and organs forming back into one central piece, even after being cut in half. Yup, that's because the Death Knight whipped out the anti-Kit Kat technique from the Heian era. With his body fully reformed, the phantom assassin began to realize that he fucked up by targeting an undead monster. Here's the icing on the cake. After experiencing the same technique used on his body, Damien instantly learned it and was able to use his perceptive eyes to target the phantom assassin's vital points. Without even being able to comprehend what was going on, the Death Knight slaughtered the assassin by giving him the same treatment. Instant karma, and he did it without a sword too. The maniacal assassin experienced excruciating pain, all the while being unable to comprehend how someone was able to copy his secret technique. And that leads us back to the present. A similar expression is worn by Ted, one of despair and defeat. He's down on the ground, his body hasn't been severed in half in a gruesome manner, but it did experience a deep slash. Our glorious protagonist explains that every single one of his enemies didn't even know what hit them until they were groveling on the ground. All of his fights went like this. Why? It's because his one inherent ability as the Death Knight is to absorb his enemies' skills and use them as his own. Long story short, bro is out here giving Kakashi the copy ninja a run for his money. Seeing Ted go down the way he did causes the bar owner to become scared as shit. He's out here sweating bullets, thinking that he's next. Bro's got that desperate Vegeta face going on. Seconds later, he's kneeling in front of our boy and apologizing for bringing dishonor to the Haxon Viscounty. But it doesn't end there. He also offers a serious amount of gold as a consolation for any trouble caused. Damien is out here celebrating on the inside. He only came here for a simple apology, but he's getting easy money too. He decides to let the matter slide and glances at his servant Victor, who quietly observed the whole scene unfold. The servant quickly comes to collect the amount, questioning his own senses after what happened. He saw how the young master dismantled the knight with a crazy technique at the last second. It doesn't make sense to him how the young master suddenly obtained powerful techniques. In the next scene, they're leaving the bar. Victor comments on how he's never had to carry so much money before. But something tells me the bar owner isn't finished, because this scumbag intends to take his revenge in the future. His intention is to speak to the leader of the Black Snake organization. But as he's plotting his next revenge scheme, our boy comes back to humble him by slicing off his right ear. The bar owner screams in agony, while Damien reminds him that he couldn't leave without rendering an appropriate punishment. Oh, and he already anticipates the bar owner's next move, and he's more than happy to leave a message for the leader of the organization. Damien's only warning is that if the organization dares to mess with his family, he'll wipe them all out. Despite having his ear cut off firsthand, he still wants to take his revenge and intends to report to the organization. But that's for later, as our boy keeps on walking ahead. As he's heading out, he fully comes to terms with his own wrongdoings in his previous life. His past leaves a trail of blood, one of murder and only sinful acts. He doesn't intend to run from this past, but this time, he vows not to disappoint his family and always stay by their side. Damien declares that it's time for them to head home. The scene cuts to the Lion Bloom March, where a man addresses his brother regarding the phrase, "Pain always follows love." His brother doesn't know what this dude is going on about, and realizes that this guy's planning to head to another battle. Rejecting his brother's assumption, the dude clarifies that he's actually going on a quest to find love. I would believe his words if not for that ugly expression on his face. Coming back to the Haxon estate, our boy is glad to have gotten a good night's sleep after his adventurous run last night. The same can't be said for poor Victor, however, who was busy processing what happened before his eyes. The horror of it all kept him awake, thinking about what would happen next. Damien emphasizes that everything worked out well in their favor, so there's nothing to worry about. Even though they deviated from the original plan, they achieved their purpose all the same. Next up, our boy is waiting for the rumors to spread around, allowing people to realize not to fuck with the Viscount Haxon's eldest son. With this rumor flying around, no one will ever dare to mess with his family again. He's also happy that his reputation as the useless son will also experience a slight shift, and people will see him in a more respectful light. Even as his servant, Victor can't fathom how the young master is suddenly so competent and self-aware. The servant is deathly afraid of what will happen regarding the situation with the Black Snake group, because what they did last night was provocative in every sense. Damien dog-walked their men and even annihilated an apprentice knight. Even with their threat looming around, Damien is confident that they would double-check before messing with a noble family. And if they're stupid enough to try, he'll beat them black and blue. This alleviates some of Victor's concerns, and he comments on our boy's exceptional sword skills that he shouldn't even have, which makes him question when the young master became so capable in sword fighting. Of course, our boy quickly turns away because he really doesn't have an explanation for it. Damien tells him that he trains every now and then. Speaking of Damien, his father is out here channeling the speeds of Barry Allen, the Flash. Bro is pissed that his son was gone all day yesterday. What's more, he's scared that the kid must have caused even more trouble again. Showing no signs of fear, Damien urges his father to calm down, because he handled everything and rectified his previous mistake. He then tells Victor to reveal their prized possession. The glimmering gold coins seduce his parents very quickly. It's the easiest way to make them happy. The young master informs them of his travels to the same tavern, and how he cleared up a certain misunderstanding, a miscalculation that they did, and because of that, They gave him consolation money for their mistake. I just love how he omitted the part where he cut off like 20 hands and plucked off the bar owner's ear. His parents are doubtful at first, but they're quickly persuaded because of the gold. The funny thing is that Damien even uses Victor to testify on his part, shoving him under the boss as well. In the end, Victor agrees with everything the young master said, which adds more weight to his words and helps his family's trust in him. Damien's parents are happy, while Victor is out here realizing that he's got a Gaslighter Pro Max as his young master. The scene quickly cuts to our boy sprinting in the fields in order to test his stamina. After a little while, he's already exhausted and dying for breath. This makes Damien understand his own limitations, and he has to deal with his shitty body at once, or he'll be at a huge disadvantage. Pulling out a purple gem from his pocket, he's lucky to have acquired a little something that's going to help him in the short run. Before leaving the tavern, the bar owner included this tonic in his list of treasures. A creation of Alchemy Academy, it allows a significant increase in one's stamina and energy. Damien found himself surprised to hear the Academy's name. They specialize in making these types of potions and tonics, and they're so good that their value is equal to a gemstone. All the good for this young master, who got his hands on it for free. At present, he quickly gulps down the tonic, and in mere seconds, experiences a jolt of electrifying energy brewing inside of him. The effects are working right away. He crushes the vial, reflecting that his most important goal right now is to build up his body back to the way it was, to become the unstoppable Death Knight. The Pookie Archlich Dorgo is bound to unleash his army of the undead, ravaging the world to ashes. Damien has to make sure to prevent that dark future from happening, no matter what. That's why he's hell-bent on regaining his powers. It's the only way he'll be able to protect what's dear to him, his family's safety and happiness. Pumped for another run, he bolts off, declaring that he'll kill the Archlich, and this time he'll make sure Dorgo stays down. That very night, the scene cuts to the Tower of the Black Snake Group. The grunting fatso is disappointed in the apprentice knight's defeat, especially since they spent a fortune hiring him. Ted's condition is really bad, so much so that even the underlings think they should get him treated. But off-brand Kim Jong-un over here is ruthless, and orders Ted to be thrown into the dumpster. Meet the boss of the Black Snake Group, Cedric Walker, who apparently doesn't believe in second chances and wants Ted to be disposed of right away. After all, they can just buy another one in his place. Mustering all of his strength, the apprentice knight takes a stand and comments on how disappointing this ending is. Cedric turns around, surprised to see the knight still capable of holding his ground. He actually offers Ted a second chance if he gets treated, but based on how he was about to dispose of him only a minute ago, the apprentice knight is so pissed off that he lunges at him with his blade. But despite his desperate attempt to kill the organization's leader, he is stopped by a shadow tendril, which quickly chains him and renders him harmless. The person responsible appears and prefers killing the apprentice knight as part of their contract. Cedric is more than happy to see how their newest hire will perform. The helpless knight can only shout complaints. The mage ends up chanting a command, unleashing demonic creatures from the dark upon the helpless knight. Before the knight can even comprehend what's going on, he meets his bone-chilling demise. Despite him begging for mercy, the 5 demonic beasts devour each of his limbs as well as his head, ripping his body apart as his screams reach the ceiling. By the end, the only thing that's left of Ted is a miserable foot. Bro probably got the worst death I've seen in a while. Cedric is disgusted, but at the same time quite impressed. He accepts the mage into his group and requests for cleaner deaths from now on. The mage is happy to hear that and awaits his next target. The leader of the organization expresses the recent incident, which included a noble who messed with their members. However, Cedric isn't going to be stopping. All he cares about is for Damien to suffer an agonizing and gruesome death, and he's even willing to increase the pay for it. Cedric pays the mage his commission in advance. The dark mage is more than happy to take up this task and execute it with success. Panting in exhaustion, our boy continues his epic training arc. He's out here doing squats with a heavy load on each side, helping him become overall muscular and amp up his stamina. This training regimen is doing wonders for him. But strangely enough, the past few days have been far too quiet, almost as if disaster is right around the corner. He was fully expecting the Black Snake organization to come and shoot him down by now. As he's about to drink from his bottle, he senses the presence of 2 assassins nearby. Realizing that they're the scumbags of the organization, our boy zaps in with incredible speed to pin them down. To his utter shock, the dude he ends up attacking isn't an enemy, but actually Abel, his nerdy brother. Bro immediately releases him, causing his younger brother to flop to the ground. Abel is awestruck by his older brother's incredible strength, and he was fully expecting to get his head popped just now. It's a good thing that didn't happen. Damien apologizes and offers him a hand, sharing that it was never his intent to treat him like this. Instead of accepting his older brother's apology, the nerdy brother reveals that he learned about Damien's situation at the bar, and how he got an apology out of the owner. However, from what he's heard, he knows that a fight broke out, and that dozens of people were injured. Abel accuses his older brother of lying to his own family. Instead of deceiving him, Damien actually confirms the facts as the cold, hard truth. Abel jumps in his face in shock, questioning how the hell his brother was able to face off so many people. It doesn't make sense unless he hired Agent 47 or something. Even though Damien fully accepts that he's the one who did everything, Abel still isn't convinced. The only thing he cares about is that his older brother doesn't go around dishonoring their family's reputation. They're already sick and tired of cleaning the troubles he's caused in the past. Fully understanding his little brother's annoyance, Damien pats him on the head, reflecting that his little brother has a pure heart and has always wanted the best for his family. That's why he doesn't find himself annoyed at his attitude. In fact, he smiles at Abel, stating that there's nothing for them to worry about anymore. Their meeting is interrupted by Victor, who comes in panting to deliver some shockingly bad news. His sudden announcement causes both of the young masters to grow alert. In the next scene, they quickly dash into the family estate and burst open the door, only to find his parents sitting opposite to a certain man. This is the same dude from earlier, who wanted to go on his quest for love or whatever the heck he means. Seeing Damien arrive so quickly, the arrogant man expresses his innocent intentions of sharing what happened at the banquet hall. Meet Erwin Lionbloom, the evil and beta version of Erwin from Attack on Titan. Unfortunately, he shares some terrible ties with our protagonist. To understand what happened between them, we'll have to go back to the past. At the banquet hall, he and Erwin had a little beef. Apparently Damien was offended by something, while the calm and collected Erwin only riled him further. The drunk troublemaker reminded everyone that Erwin insulted his sister and spoke badly about him, so he has every right to take offense. Then again, Erwin smartly took advantage of our boy's drunk state and pinned the blame on that. To make matters even worse, this bastard went right up in his face to call him a retard, and reminded him that even if he did say all of that, Damien couldn't do shit about it anyway. It came as a shock to our boy's system. At the time, he made the biggest mistake he could possibly make in that situation. He chose physical violence and punched the bastard away. To be honest, that punch felt really satisfying, even if it was the wrong thing to do in the hall. Even after eating a clear hit to the face, the noble released a victorious smile, implying that he always wanted the situation to turn out this way. And that brings us to the present. Damien fully understands that Erwin deliberately chose to get hit because he's actually pretty damn skilled, close enough to become a knight, so it would have been easy to dodge. As it turns out, the slimeball was waiting for this moment. In this family meeting, this man boldly tells our boy's parents that he shares admiration for Louise, their daughter. At first, the Viscount doesn't get what Erwin is trying to say. That's until Captain Douchebag over here boldly declares a marriage proposal between him and Damien's sister. The announcement rocks the Haxon family to their very senses. Damien internalizes his frustration, knowing that this is the exact sequence that took place in his previous life. The bastard took advantage of his family's poor circumstances. Erwin doubles down by saying that he'll forget what happened at the banquet hall, but only if they become a part of his family, therefore preventing any bad blood between the two houses. However, his father firmly denies such a proposal, like the gigachad he is. Erwin's frustration grows after discovering that Louise already has a fiancé set for marriage. But then comes the issue of his humiliation at the banquet hall. Erwin reminds the Haxon family that they won't be able to deal with the consequences that come with denying his proposal. It will end in a wrathful outcome. The scumbag offers them a final dilemma. It's either they choose him for their daughter, or they suffer the consequences. This is truly a difficult decision for the Viscount to consider, knowing that the Lionbloom family is tremendously powerful among the nobles. Even then, he knows just how shitty of a person Erwin truly is. His father's instincts just can't allow something so disgraceful to happen to his daughter. Suddenly, Louise herself makes her presence known, offering herself as the sacrifice and accepting the terms of marriage. Seeing their own daughter sacrifice herself like this causes the Viscount to break down. He tries to assure her that they'll find a way out of this, even though Abel is pissed off and admits that his sister doesn't have to deal with the trouble Damien caused. Seeing her take a stand for the sake of her family even causes Damien to feel sad, but the brave girl maintains her smile, promising to go with Erwin. The whole situation is a great reminder for our protagonist, a reflection of his past mistakes summarized in one scene. Because of the problems he caused, his sister had to bite the bullet. Now that the situation has wrapped up in his favor, an evil smile crosses over Erwin's face. He's glad that they made the correct choice. As he prepares to leave, he tells Louise that a formal request will be officially sent so they can discuss details. But as he's talking all that shit, the devil himself appears before his eyes, glaring down at him. I think anyone who has a sister would have the same expression as our boy after what happened. Mocking Damien openly, Erwin calls him his brother-in-law. Damien doesn't give a damn about him, but the fact that he ruined his sister's life in the original timeline is enough motivation for him to prevent the same from happening again. Louise can't believe that her brother has taken a stand for her. He mumbles something incomprehensible, something that the arrogant blonde noble doesn't even comprehend. What he does comprehend is a Mike Tyson uppercut that launches him to the damn sky. While it's true that Damien shouldn't have fallen for Erwin's provocation again, he just can't sit around waiting for this bastard to tear his family apart. The noble's body hits the ground, while our boy declares his stance strongly. He won't let Erwin do what he wants. To understand why he feels such disdain for this man, we'll have to take a peek into the original timeline of what happened the first time. After being sold off to the Lionbloom family, Damien couldn't see his sister for a long time. So one day, when he realized that they were coming to visit, he couldn't contain his excitement and ran with a smile on his face, excited to meet his sister. Things took a truly terrifying turn, because the moment he arrived, his body shuddered in despair. Before him was his beautiful sister. Her hair was pulled like she was some kind of animal. Erwin dragged her for always complaining about her shitty family. He was pissed that she even dared to threaten leaving him. Oh, but he didn't stop there. To truly educate her and make sure she never defied him again, Erwin prepared himself properly as the innocent girl shuddered in fear. Locking in a fist, he abused her brutally as the poor girl wailed in pain. Just watching that sight broke our boy from the inside. He couldn't even protect his sister, and he's the one who got her into such a state in the first place, all because of his actions at the banquet hall. From then on, a deep hatred took root inside of Damien's heart, a hatred designed specifically for the bastard known as Erwin Lionbloom. That brings us back to the present, where he's just finished uppercutting this man into a knockout. The entire family is shaken. The Lionbloom guards concerningly show up after hearing the sound of their young master moaning in pain. At once, they unsheath their weapons to seize the person responsible for hurting the young master. Damien gave them one look and realized that they're his escort guards. Speaking of the bastard, Erwin snickers like the little pest he is and gets back up. He's done being bitch-slapped twice in the face by now. Taking the situation to violent means, he clenches his sword, while the Haxon family stares in horror. Finally revealing his true nature, Erwin unsheathes his blade, questioning if his brother-in-law is looking for a quick death. To prevent the situation from turning into a bloodbath, his escort guards quickly step in to handle the situation for him, since it could lead to a bad impression of him. But this time, the enraged bastard doesn't listen to reason, and demands that his guards move. When one of the escort guards resists the order, Erwin literally punches him into the nearest wall. I genuinely took him for a weakling, but damn, he really is close to the skill of a knight. Chillingly reminding his guards to move, Erwin glares at them with contempt. Abel and Louise are quivering for their brother's sake, while the Lionbloom young master strides forward to deal with Damien for good. He wonders how the Haxon family will resolve this situation, especially when they've made it worse tenfold. Sensing real danger for her brother's life, Louise understands that Damien will be hurt. She forcibly steps in to resolve everything. But this time, our boy defends her. No longer will she become the sacrifice. This time Damien, her older brother, will handle the situation, as he gives her a look of assurance that everything is all right. It's time for an official one-on-one duel. Hearing the word duel astonishes the Lionbloom young master. Damien makes his offer clear, stating that he'll do anything Erwin asks of him if he is defeated in the duel. But if our boy wins, everything that happened up to this point will be forgotten from both sides. Interestingly, Erwin doesn't want to accept the conditions for the duel, because he already got what he wanted out of Louise. She already signed an approval from her side. Instead of backing down, Damien takes a smart approach by challenging Erwin's ego, stating that he's a coward for backing out of a duel. Basically, bro said no balls to a good argument. The funniest thing is that it actually works. Erwin considers accepting the duel simply because he thinks he'll mop the floor with Damien in a real battle, finding this as the perfect opportunity to crush Damien forever and then steal his sister from him. The sadistic bastard points his blade and accepts the duel. In the next scene, Damien's mother is really worried and wants to intervene, but seeing their son confidently step in like that, the Viscount thinks that Damien must have a plan behind his back. That's why they have to let their hopes rest in his hands. Unfortunately for them, Abel knows just how despairing this situation truly is. He is the only person here who fully understands Erwin's skills, comparing him to an official knight. So from that perspective, this is a losing battle right from the beginning. The arrogant young master wants to kick the battle into motion, but he's stunned that his opponent isn't even interested in using a sword. Damien assures him that he'll be all right. In order to fully humiliate the guy, bro brings out his trusty fork. Ah yes, the ultimate fork sword. The only weapon that can compare to the ultimate stick of destruction. Seeing the damn fork in his hand, Erwin is at a loss for words while Damien's family is out here dying on the inside, questioning what the actual flip he's going to do with that. Erwin straight up laughs in his face, finding it reasonable to assume that his opponent has already accepted defeat. He thinks Damien's gone crazy out of terror. With full confidence, Irwin lunges into the fight, intending to cut him down. But to his utter shock, the first swing misses Damien, who evaded casually. To complicate his attack pattern, Irwin launched multiple swings, unleashing his technique, the fierce roaring lion sword. Bro's got his own Susanoo over here. Anyway, the destructive blow is all smoke and mirrors, because by the end of the attack our boy's feet are still firmly planted on the ground. He's deflected every single strike. Even the escort guards are at a loss for words, not knowing if their young master is playing around or if his opponent is really that good. To deconstruct what happened, we take a look at Irwin's point of view. In that brief time window from when the technique launched, our boy danced around each of his swings, without even getting hit once. As for Damien, he's glad that his physical training has been paying off. Thanks to his increased stamina, he can now keep up with fast movements without gassing himself out. Need I remind you guys that he's doing all of this with just a damn fork? But also, he has gained an understanding of the Lionbloom family's swordsmanship thus far. Here's the neat part. In the original timeline, the Death Knight Damien actually faced off against the eldest son of the Lionbloom family, Micahel Lionbloom, and this guy was a force to be reckoned with. Compared to that, his little brother is disappointing and much weaker. That's why the current Damien isn't having any trouble facing him. Irwin's blood boils as he sends off waves of aura, refusing to accept that it was skill that allowed Damien to dodge his techniques. Unfortunately, the invoking of aura is dangerous for anyone to deal with, so our boy is faced with yet another puzzle. How will he avoid this? Irwin Lionbloom races at incredible speeds to jump right in front of the target, ready to deal a killing blow. In this delicate moment, Damien considers and selects the Sword Saint technique from his list of techniques, and decides to use it. A proper clash breaks out, except Irwin's world breaks into pieces when he sees a mere fork blocking his sword, and even overpowering it to some extent. He can't even fathom what's going on. Before can even process the situation, he is struck with our boy's secret move, the countless Thunder Shadow revelations. Using that move, the ultimate fork of destruction flings the sword away with ease. It's Irwin's ultimate fall, as Damien hastens to end the fight with a fork in hand. The fork stabs the arrogant noble in the neck, ending the battle. Every single person in his family gasps in horror. You guys might be thinking that a fork was used as a murder weapon just now, but it turns out that our boy is quite generous. He only poked Irwin's neck, as if to warn him that he could have done more. Even after receiving a tiny stab, this dude starts freaking out like a little bitch. Of course, in his heart, Damien really would have wanted to kill him and erase the disease from the world. But he knows that he must choose his family's side this time and let this situation slide. So he concludes the duel, declaring himself as the clear winner and asking if little Irwin over here has any issues with that conclusion. Shuddering like a puppy, the arrogant noble has been reduced to a harmless doll. Damien straight up tells this dude to get lost as the scene comes to an end. If you guys think the way Damien handled that humiliation was satisfying, then like the video and show your support. After the duel, the family shares a quiet breakfast the next day. Having finished his meal, our boy gets up to leave for his training. With him gone, the family sulks in sadness. Particularly, the boy's mother is curious and wonders when they'll talk to Damien about what happened. Speaking of which, Abel is out here having a system reset. Dude is in a permanent state of shock, unable to comprehend how his brother suddenly became so goddamn powerful. Even his parents are concerned. The Viscount breaks silence, emphasizing that it wouldn't be right to force their son for an answer. He thinks the right decision here is to let the boy reveal the truth when he feels the time is right. I really like that they're not forcing him here. Such a nice touch. Apart from that, his father is visibly shaken. Though he's curious about his son, the look of death he sees in Damien's eyes intimidates him to the point he doesn't want to confront him about anything. Even though Damien is his flesh and blood, that boy has become a lot more intimidating than before. Shifting the perspective to our boy's side, he's out here taking inspiration from Rock Lee, arming his body with heavy weight to train for endurance. As he's about to head out, Louise catches up to her brother. She's the first person from his family who wants to talk about what happened the other day. While she's struggling to form her words, our boy realizes his mistake and immediately lowers his head, apologizing for the trouble he caused and how he forced her to be in a vulnerable position. While he's ranting on and on about his apology, his sister stops him, offering her sincerest gratitude. He really did stand up for her, and she feared for her life, even though she didn't show her fear in front of Irwin. It's thanks to her brother that she avoided such a miserable fate. Hearing her admit that makes Damien very happy to have made a difference. Knowing that her brother stepped up for her cause, to save her bravely, is the reason she's so grateful for him. In a warm moment while receiving her gratitude, Damien offers his own. A sister shows her love for her brother, and a brother returns it back with interest. He's thankful for everything she's done for him this far. Before Louise can comprehend what he means by that, he prepares to leave. As he's leaving, she offers him a sword to take with him. It's actually their father's most prized possession, his favorite item. To show love for his son, the Viscount gifted him the blade so that Damien could use it in his training. The boy is shocked to hear such consideration from his father, while Louise reveals that even though their father can be tough on the outside, he loves Damien a lot. Funnily enough, she does her father's impression to remind dear old Damien never to use a fork again because it's disgraceful for the family. Damien's pretty damn convinced by her impression and unsheathes the blade, finding himself impressed by what he sees. He's in his father's debt. Hilariously, when we go back to his father's sword collection, we get to see that this man has a whole bunch of swords at his disposal. He's just complaining for no reason at all. In the next scene, terror looms in the shadows. The evil mage and his dark magic has made its way to a certain estate. The night guards are out here yawning in exhaustion, and right when they're caught off guard, the shadows take over them, dismantling both of them in a mere instant. With the two of them down, this mysterious mage makes his way through the gate. In the few moments that followed, the mage slowly made his way inside the house. Abel and his parents are asleep. The mage quietly steps up to Louise's room, who is also dozing off, not knowing an evil man is hovering over her. This disgusting piece of filth is enjoying himself staring at her. Even though he came here on behalf of the Black Snake, he thinks he's found himself something fun to play with. The filthy mage finds himself startled when he discovers a voice from behind. It's our boy, who is aura farming at the door to look even more badass than he is. He gives the bastard a disgusting look and questions his actions. The call-out is real, as Damien goes on to express that he was able to sense strange energy lurking around their house, so he decided to check it out. The perspective of the dark mage is interesting. Even though he used a special type of magic to put everyone to sleep, it appears that Damien was unaffected by it. Not just that, the dark mage couldn't even detect his presence from behind until he spoke. These factors alone are enough to convince him that this guy is troublesome. So he quickly turns back and unleashes Vegeta's Gallic gun over here. Dodging the magic blast, our boy moves to a different position, all the while frustrating the dark mage as he fails to understand what's happening. Damien prepares his sword, throwing the same question back at him as he reminds the scumbag that he's the one who invaded their house. Suddenly, the mage realizes that he's actually speaking to his target, Damien of the Haxon house. Confirming his identity, our boy pulls his blade, locking a lethal glare at the mage, and demanding to know why the hell he stepped foot in his sister's room. The powerful magic attack shook the house and woke the rest of the family. The mage realizes that he's going to be in deep trouble if the servants have already awoken. Since he's supposed to execute his task cleanly as per his orders, the dark mage decides to retreat for now. As he's fading away into a shadow mist, Damien tries to stop him. Unfortunately, there's little you can do while fighting the damn air, so his enemy escapes through the window and out the house, disappearing into the distance. With the threat neutralized, Damien suddenly spots a shred of the mage's dark energy. It appears that he left some of it behind. In the next scene, we turn to the perspective of the servants. They've just discovered the horrific sight of the Viscount's most treasured horse. If word gets out, the Viscount will raise hell. It's also strange because the horse was doing just fine the other day. As the servants are mumbling in horror, Damien comes up to shock them with his sudden entry, expressing his own concerns. The young master's sudden arrival scares them, but he assures them that there's no need for any of them to panic, as he isn't here to hold either one of them responsible. All he cares about is for him to take a personal look, so he orders them to leave the site. Now that he's alone, Damien inspects the condition of the horse. Turns out that the same shadow trail of energy is somehow connected to this dead horse. From the looks of it, he's confirmed the presence of dark mana based on the terrifying energy signature. This also confirms his suspicions that the man he faced last night is actually a dark mage who practices such mana. Now Damien understands that his family still doesn't know what happened. In fact, he has no intention of revealing anything as it will only create chaos and worry. Instead, he glares back to the trail of dark energy, looming in the atmosphere and creating a path into the forest. A while later, we get to see the hideout of the dark mage. Apparently, he's holding his valuables here while snickering like a Walmart villain. It's actually because Cedric recently sent him all of the things he asked for. He lied to the Black Snake's leader, stating that it's a curse, but from how much inventory he received, the dark mage is glad that his experimentations will continue down the line. At the same time, he feels disappointed in his own talent. He's having to struggle with bottom-tier requests just to earn a bit of money. Then again, it's the only choice he has, especially when the Holy Church is already on the lookout for him. It's imperative for the guy to keep a low profile, or so he thought, because following the same trail of dark energy, our boy happily shows up. Think of it like returning a favor for invading his home. He calls out the disgusting stench. I bet it's comparable to that one stranger on the bus ripping one out and killing everyone with their mustard gas. The dark mage can't believe his eyes. The eldest son of the Viscount, the man he fought yesterday, has just showed up to his doorstep. It bothers him that Damien managed to discover his little hideout. I mean, it wasn't hard, I bet, considering the fact that his mana smells the same as the average gamer's room. The Dark Mage shares how he had heard about the rumors of the noble standing up to the members of the Black Snake, but now that he's seen the kid in person, he can tell that Damien is more powerful than people believe him to be. The young master is glad that he was sharp, knowing that the Dark Mage shares a connection with the evil organization. The Dark Mage confirms this, revealing that a part of their deal is to make sure Damien suffers an agonizing death. Hearing this makes him laugh, as he declares what's about to happen, pointing out that the mage will die for taking on such a request. Hearing such a ridiculous remark from him, the mage laughs, unveiling his sinister nature and finding joy in his victim's delusion. He's in the mood to make the perfect experimental pet out of Damien after capturing him. The swordsman prepares his sword, assuring the mage that it won't be the case, because in this life, he promised himself that he won't kill anyone unless absolutely necessary. However, the only exception to his rule are people as heinous as the Dark Mage, who are the definition of filth and disgust. Damien's more than happy to wipe them off the face of the planet. The Dark Mage is astonished yet again by the boy's knowledge, but he thinks it's all meaningless and blasts him multiple magic circle attacks. He's not going to let the Viscount's son escape at any cost. But lucky for him, our boy doesn't share that intention either. Looking cool as fuck, he sweeps right in with an incredible lunge and connects a clean upward slash, cutting his opponent in half. Diseases are hard to kill, and just like a bad disease, this guy is also hard to kill. Despite being split in half, he simply disintegrates into the shadows, reassembling his state. Damien internalizes that his opponent is using the same ability he used back at the estate, and that this guy is actually pretty damn strong, even if he took up a lower-tier request to kill someone. Maniacal laughter releases from his mouth, as the Dark Mage assumes his victory, maintaining that he won't be cut by ordinary means. So in order to deal with a pest like him, Damien decides to go ballistic and renders numerous cuts to make sure nothing remains. Even though it's a good effort on his part, it still doesn't change the fact that his opponent's body can reassemble with ease. The Dark Mage thinks he's dealing with someone powerful, but he makes it known that the moment Damien walked inside his hideout, he sealed his own fate. Speaking of sealing his fate, the scumbag uses the same attack he used against Ted, restraining Damien in place and letting his little demons of death devour the rest. The thing is, the Dark Mage knew that the church was on his tail, so he doubled down on his preparations with advanced spells. From the looks of it, the situation is getting really tense. Even our boy is tensed up considering his circumstances. The mage grimaces in victory, laughing at the demise of his opponent, who will regret challenging an officer of the Yulin rank. With Damien restrained, he's moments away from being ultimately devoured by the creatures of the dark and meeting the same fate as the apprentice knight. The tendrils of dark mummify their victim. It's like watching a spider webbing up its prey and tangling it into place. The Dark Mage returns to his tangible form and calls Damien arrogant for being reckless with his approach. He also remembers Cedric's order to make his target suffer as much as possible, which is made successful by the fact that he'll torture him for a long time. This bastard is also out here celebrating that now he can feast on the beauty he saw at his house without any interruptions. That's until Damien drops a little surprising note for him. He breaks apart the decomposing curse spell that he just used. At a loss for words, the Dark Mage returns a look of despair, questioning how his prey is unaffected. It's impossible to dispel the curse unless someone knows about dark magic, which is exactly what our boy did. Here's the thing though, even Damien is taken aback by what he did. I guess his regression powers kicked in, because it appears he awakened an authority insignia on his body, even though he shouldn't have it at this point in the past. Let's talk about what an authority actually is. In this world, it's known as the power of a god being gifted to mortals. In this case, Dorgo favored his Death Knight so much that he infused the strongest magic and binded it into him. Even after giving him indestructible magic and power, Dorgo was left unsatisfied. He wanted more out of his Death Knight, the ultimate servant and the sword of evil. Hence, he decided to slit his own hand, unleashing a part of his dark power, turning the Death Knight into an ultimate weapon. A column of dark mana pulsed upon the Death Knight. Dorgo forced his authority upon him, and with a final hand sign, he imbued all of it into Damien's body, carving an insignia on his hand. That evil power ripped his body apart, giving him a world of pain unlike any other. By the end of the process, the Death Knight had transcended into a realm of becoming unstoppable. This Gigachad received the authority of God and became a force to be reckoned with. Side note, all of a sudden, I'm starting to realize why Dorgo got his ass nuked. Bro literally turned his Death Knight into a mini nuclear weapon and thought things were gonna be fine. Back to the present, Damien remembers the mark of the authority of greed. It's his power as the Death Knight resurfacing again. Before he's able to process it fully, another magic blast comes his way, which he quickly evades. The Dark Mage raises an immediate question for him. Just how the hell was he able to survive his decomposition spell? Being a good sport, Damien funnily says that he had a trump card, and that's why. The most convincing explanation is actually the power of plot armor, and the author makes sure to slide that part in. Back to the battle, Damien has now gained an understanding of his opponent and his connection to Yulan. This Yulan is actually another organization, an even more sinister one that practices assassination using dark magic. Compared to them, the Black Snake is nothing. It's not a surprise that this guy is actually pretty damn skilled. The Dark Mage assesses the situation too, internalizing that he can't let this battle drag on for any longer, especially when his opponent is unpredictable. Even though he wanted to save his ultimate weapon for the church, he thinks it's an appropriate time to whip out the good stuff. With his bracelet glowing a bright green, the mage unleashes a wave of mana, exuding from his body as he slowly loses control of himself. Even Damien notices that this guy is using a dangerous amount of dark mana. From his understanding, the bracelet appears to be some kind of artifact to store mana. Well, things go from 0 to 100 really quick when this guy uses his full power. He summons an illusory beast that I don't even know how to describe. Let's call him the Ugly Five Eyes. Having lost control, the Dark Mage roars the demise for his opponent and declares Damien will burn in hellfire. The creature of destruction fully swarms in and connects against our boy's body. With a direct hit like that, the Dark Mage once again assumes his victory. How could anyone on Earth possibly survive such a hellfire after all? Hellfire is something that can't be expunged, even after one's death. Using the power of plot armor once again, Damien breezes through the green flames, pointing out the mage's miscalculation. The thing about the authority of greed is that it simply doesn't dispel magic. Damien stands unharmed as the same hellfire flames get absorbed into his body. He stands uncontested, having become more powerful than ever before, revealing that the function of his authority is to absorb all dark magic. The mage is at a loss for words, questioning how a Viscount's son could have the terrifying power of authority. It's time for this fight to end, as the young master readies his blade, commanding that he has nothing to explain to a dead man. But on the inside, Damien is genuinely pissed off that he has to rely on his dark powers to win a battle. At the same time, he doesn't have much choice but to invoke the techniques of the Death Knight in order to win this fight. The Dark Mage is at a loss for words when he sees the aura blade. The sword is coated in a black aura, and it's not just any sword technique either. It's something only achievable by a warrior of the Swordmaster rank. Before he yaps again about his confusion about Damien's abilities, our boy renders his ultimate technique, the soul-severing slash, slicing his opponent's body clean and leaving a massive gash in the cave. The place crumbles after being devastated by his blade, while Damien glares at his victim. The strike is so powerful that it tears through the Dark Mage and slices the mountain behind him. Without pause, Damien walks toward the fallen mage and pins him down with his sword, demanding the location of the Dark Snake hideout. The next morning, the boy heads toward the city of Landwork alongside Victor. The fatty questions the reason for their journey, but the boy quickly shuts him down for asking too many questions. Redirecting his curiosity, the Big Mac's attention shifts to a dark book Damien is reading. The boy claims it's a grimoire of dark magic he recently acquired, though in truth he knows it came from the Dark Mage he took down. Victor remains skeptical, knowing such grimoires are incredibly rare and difficult to acquire. But before he can say more, he's distracted by a strange, foul smell coming from a sack Damien is carrying. Soon they arrive at the market, where the boy hands the sack to him, casually stating that it contains a person's head. Still refusing to believe him, he opens the sack himself, only to spot a lifeless eye staring back. With a panicked yelp, he hurls it away and begins breathing heavily, shaken. When he demands an explanation, the boy tells him to first deliver the head and the book. He'll explain everything afterward. Despite nearly pissing himself, Victor agrees. A while later, the boy arrives at the gates of the Dark Snake headquarters and confidently introduces himself. The guards dismiss the Haxan name at first, until they realize he's the one their boss warned them about. The boy catches on that they already know who he is and pressures them to let him through. To Fatty's shock, they agree. But just as they allow him to enter, one of the guards suddenly fires a flare into the sky. In seconds, the entire compound swarms with assassins and bounty hunters, surrounding Damien with weapons drawn. According to them, this is the welcome gift prepared by their boss. Yet despite being completely surrounded, the boy remains calm, certain they'll regret the choice they've made. Meanwhile, inside the headquarters, Cedric, the boss of the Dark Snake, hosts the Landwork governor and his drunken knight over lunch. The governor, clearly enjoying the meal and company, casually grants Cedric control over the city's red light district. Cedric lights up with excitement at the offer, though he worries the other might protest. But the governor quickly reassures him, claiming he holds the authority to silence any opposition. The knight, slouched and tipsy, tries to offer his help with something, but the fatty glazes him off, insisting the knight's already doing his part by protecting them. He tells him not to waste energy on trivial stuff. The comment flusters the knight, and both he and the governor appear ready to do whatever Cedric wants. Cedric plays along, keeping them wrapped around his finger. In truth, he entertains them only so he won't have to bow to their power later. His ambitions reach far beyond a district as he plans to claim the entire city. Just as they're enjoying the moment, one of their men barges in, urgently calling for Cedric. Though clearly annoyed, Cedric follows him out. When the man reveals that it's Damien, Cedric shouts his name so loud that even the governor hears it from the other room. He fumes with rage, realizing the dark mage he relied on turned out to be a disappointment. Still, he waves the man off, claiming there's no need to worry. In Cedric's mind, Damien has walked into his own death trap, and even if things don't go exactly as planned, he has someone who owes him a favor. Someone who will make sure the job gets done. Sensing something is wrong, the fatty steps out of the building to check, and is shocked to see his assassin lying defeated on the ground, while the boy stands there completely unharmed. The sight stuns him. He had always heard that Damien Haxon was nothing more than the useless son of a viscount, but this boy clearly has skill. The realization makes him wonder if Damien was also the one who took down his dark mages. Panic sets in, and he rushes back inside, hoping to get reinforcements. Outside, the mage fires a blazing fireball at Damien using their staff. To their shock, he counters it with his sword, channeling his countless thunder technique to deflect and hurl the attacks back at them. The rebounding blasts explode in fiery bursts, reducing the mages to scorched corpses. It seems all of them are taken out, until Damien suddenly senses something approaching from behind. He turns just in time to narrowly dodge a devastating sword strike. The blow crashes into the ground, sending up a violent shockwave. Though he avoids the direct hit, Damien can feel the overwhelming aura. It's so intense it even singes the ends of his hair. As the dust clears, a knight radiating deadly intent stands before him. The sheer pressure tells Damien this man might be a formally ranked knight. Soon more soldiers arrive and surround him. The sight stuns Damien as it's clear these aren't just mercenaries. They're official troops, the ones responsible for maintaining public order in the city. He immediately understands what that means. Moments later, the governor bursts onto the scene, shouting accusations at the boy for disrupting the peace in the heart of the city. Cedric stands smugly at his side as the governor publicly declares that Damien will be punished, not only for targeting a respected businessman like Cedric, Big Cap, but for attacking and killing his employees. The townspeople look on, visibly confused as to why the governor is siding with someone like that fatso. Cedric, standing confidently next to the governor, believes the boy is finally in real trouble. But Damien doesn't flinch. He recognizes Cedric as the leader of the Black Snake, and calls him out with sharp, unwavering eyes. Damien suspected the Black Snake leader has some connections, but this level of influence is downright absurd. He openly calls out the governor for supporting someone like that double cheeseburger of a man. The governor, unfazed, demands that he surrender. But the boy refuses, insisting he's committed no crime. Growing impatient, the governor orders his knight, Robert, to handle the situation. Responding to the command, Robert steps forward and tells Damien to submit to arrest. But to his surprise, there's not a flicker of fear in the boy's eyes. Taking this as arrogance, the knight swings his sword in a flash. Damien narrowly dodges, and the strike crashes into the ground, sending rubble flying. Though he's provoked the knight, Damien knows this won't be an easy fight, not at this level. He braces himself, but Robert lands a powerful blow, sending him flying. The boy manages to land on his feet, though the hit rattles him despite his attempt to deflect it. As the fight continues, Damien silently waits for someone to arrive. But the knight gives him no breathing room, pressing in with relentless speed and swinging his massive axe with brutal force. Just as the weapon is about to hit, someone suddenly jumps between them and blocks the attack. The impact is so strong it sends the knight's axe flying. Stunned, the knight demands to know who it is. When the figure reveals herself, everyone stands in shock that it's a muscle mommy paladin. Damien exhales in relief. Their reinforcement has arrived, and Victor is the one who did that. Cedric realizes that a paladin's intervention means the church is now involved, and they might already know about the Dark Mage's connection to recent events. As it turns out, Damien had sent Victor to the church carrying the Dark Mage's head, and Victor followed through exactly as instructed, effectively saving him. A few hours earlier, Victor arrived at the church, drenched in fried oil sweat, carrying both the sack and the book that Damien gave him. He handed them over to a nun, claiming they were evidence of someone collaborating with dark mages. As she examined the book, she immediately sensed the dark energy emanating from it. Upon noticing the symbol inside, her expression shifted to shock. Without a word, she snatched the sack from Victor, and the moment she saw the severed head, she recognized it as the long-sought officer of Yulan. With no hesitation, she stripped off her nun attire, revealing a muscular mommy figure formed beneath it, and demanded to know who sent Victor with these items. Now, back in the present, she seems excited to finally meet Damien and assures everyone that the church will take over the matter from here. Damien respectfully agrees. It's exactly how he had hoped things would unfold. Paladins, devoted to serving their god, are known for their charity and compassion. But when it comes to dealing with demons and dark arts, they don't hesitate. They become relentless, almost fanatical. They are, after all, the vanguard of the church. And with this development, Damien knows he now has the church on his side. As he reflects on everything, the paladin steps forward and addresses the gathered citizens. She announces that due to evidence of someone within the city communicating with dark mages, the church will be launching a full investigation. Until then, they will assume control of the city. This doesn't sit well with the governor, as the city was granted self-governance by the kingdom. However, the paladin shuts him down, firmly stating that the church holds the authority to overrule even the kingdom, and besides, both he and his knight are prime suspects. Hearing this, they are stunned. But the real shock comes when she points directly at Cedric, accusing them of protecting the man who supported dark mages and hid among them. Cedric immediately denies the accusation when questioned, but the paladin presents the book as evidence. It contains detailed records of Cedric purchasing supplies for the dark mage. This revelation enrages Cedric, furious that the dark mage had documented everything. As the soldiers begin turning on Cedric, he and his men start pleading their innocence, but it's already too late. The paladin orders them to be taken into custody for investigation. As they are led away, the governor spots Damien and realizes he was behind all of this. He's now torn between anger and fear, unsure of what the church might do to him next. Meanwhile, Cedric makes one last attempt to escape justice. He tries to provoke the governor's knight, urging him to act and not let a mere boy frame them. The knight pauses, thinking for a moment, and then, to everyone's shock, breaks free from the church guards and charges directly at the paladin, hoping to take her down and flee. But his strike misses entirely. To his horror, the paladin counters instantly, delivering a devastating punch to his gut, so powerful it kills him on the spot. According to the paladin, anyone who stands in the way of God will be punished according to divine will. After witnessing the knight's fate, Cedric wastes no time and drops to his knees while the governor still resists. Meanwhile, the boys are simply enjoying the spectacle, watching the leader of the Black Snake Gang kneeling in front of the crowd. For that, the boy quietly thanks Victor. From his observation, the paladin is even stronger than he initially thought. Judging by her aura and presence, she's likely an Azure Flame apprentice. The Azure Flame is known as the strongest warrior in the church, famous for taking down numerous powerful enemies. As Damien gets lost in thought, the paladin calls him out by name and thanks him for eliminating the dark mage of Yulan. She assures him that the church will acknowledge his efforts and that he won't be charged with anything. She reveals that the church is aware Damien contacted them not just to report the dark mage, but also to use the situation to cover his assault on the Black Snake faction. Hearing this, Damien apologizes and explains that the dark mage had tried to harm his family. The paladin, moved by this, agrees to absolve him of any wrongdoing. She also confirms that the bounty for the dark mage's head, 1,000 gold coins, will be paid to him. While the amount is more than enough to purchase a small castle, Damien doesn't ask for the gold. Instead, he requests something else, one of the church's mana cultivation techniques. This request genuinely surprises the paladin that despite his apparent strength, he still desires advanced training. Yet Damien knows the truth. Although he managed to defeat the dark mage using his authority skill, he won't be able to survive the trials the future holds without further growth. For that, he definitely needs the advanced mana training technique, the very one used by paladins. He reveals that he has only learned the basic level of it so far, and now wishes to master the advanced stage. This shocks the paladin. Reaching such a level of power using only the basics is nearly unheard of. She can sense the tremendous aura flowing through his body, and the fact that he managed to defeat a dark mage only adds to her impression. Moved by his potential, the paladin offers something even greater than the training technique. She enthusiastically invites him to become a paladin himself. But to her dismay, the boy politely refuses. She struggles to understand why he would reject such an honorable position, one considered a great privilege, granted only to a few chosen to serve God. She insists it's incredibly difficult to earn that title. However, Damien isn't particularly religious, and more importantly, he has no desire to become the church's pawn. Of course, he can't say that out loud. Instead, he claims he's not worthy of such a title. For now, he lies that he simply wants to travel the world as a humble devotee in search of truth. To Victor's shock, the act worked perfectly. The paladin appears genuinely moved by Damien's humility. Impressed by his words, she agrees to grant him access to the mana technique and warmly invites him to visit the church anytime. With that, she formally introduces herself as Agnes, the first apprentice of the Azure Flame. Damien respectfully acknowledges her name and then requests her permission to take care of one last matter. She's a bit puzzled, until she sees him walk over to Cedric and, without hesitation, punch the fat straight out of him. He follows up with a brutal kick that sends Cedric flying across the street. Only then does Damien finally feel satisfied. With that, he and Victor have accomplished exactly what they came for. Meanwhile, at the Lionbloom family estate, Erwin's father rushes to his son after hearing about the incident. Erwin, trembling in fear, claims that Damien tried to kill him with a fork. This enrages his father. He demands to know who dared lay a hand on his son. To his shock, the guards reveal it was Damien of House Haxon. This intensifies his fury. The idea that a so-called lowlife like Damien managed to beat his son using what he considers cowardly tricks drives him into a rage. He begins smashing furniture around the room, completely consumed by anger. In a fit of vengeful fury, he orders his men to drag Damien to him like a dog immediately. Meanwhile, at the Haxon household, Paladin Agnes arrives with her men and greets Damien's father. Upon seeing them, his father immediately grows angry, furious that his son not only caused trouble, but also brought what he calls a group of lunatics into their home. Agnes, remaining polite, informs him that their presence is related to the investigation of a heretic. Despite his irritation, his father grows visibly concerned about whether their house can accommodate 4 additional guests. However, his house somehow expands magically when she offers some gold. Later, as Damien's parents retreat to their room, Agnes thanks Damien for allowing them to stay. Internally, he never expected her to make such a request. To his surprise, she has another one. Even more unexpectedly, she wants to ask personal questions about him, apparently as part of spreading the gospel. His parents overhear the conversation and immediately begin misinterpreting it as something flirtatious, which only makes Damien more embarrassed. Eventually, Agnes gets to the point. She hands over the mana training technique he requested and, in addition, gives him a matching sword technique, explaining that both complement each other perfectly. These 2 books, a destructive sword style and an advanced energy cultivation method, are unlike anything Damien has seen, even in his previous life. As he begins skimming through one of the books, Agnes starts yapping about how difficult it was to acquire them. She continues talking, making sure he knows she went out of her way to help. She even reveals that after reporting everything to her master, the Azure Flame himself expressed interest in Damien joining the Paladins. With that, she once again invites him to join their order. But our boy, as always, declines. Agnes doesn't press further. She simply smiles, offers her help if he ever needs anything, and then leaves. Watching her go, Damien grows uneasy, as one thing becomes clear. She's a true fanatic. Elsewhere, inside the ruined cave of the Dark Mage, church investigators carefully examine the remains. One of them appears visibly shocked as he still can't believe that a kid like Damien managed to defeat a mage trained in dark magic. The other investigator shares the same doubt, but points out that Lady Agnes hasn't raised any concerns about it. Still, the situation troubles both of them. As they discuss, Agnes herself arrives and addresses their concerns directly. She acknowledges that their skepticism is understandable, but insists she's confident Damien is telling the truth. One of the investigators argues that they still can't grasp how he did it. In response, Agnes reveals that they already heard the full account from Damien himself. She explains that on the day his servant delivered the severed head, she also had her doubts about his abilities. That's why she stayed behind and secretly observed him when he was later ambushed by assassins. To her surprise, Damien completely overwhelmed them. What shocked her the most was seeing him deflect a fireball with nothing but his sword. Hearing that, both investigators are in disbelief. However, Agnes explains that she's heard of warriors who, upon reaching a certain level, can deflect magic attacks with raw skill and aura control. One of the investigators speculates that Damien might be a swordmaster, but Agnes remains unsure, though she firmly believes he's at least a gifted warrior. She also reveals that after Yulan's defeat, she considered taking Damien with her to meet her master, believing he could be a valuable asset to the church. With that, she firmly orders them to stop doubting and focus on their work. Outside the Haxon estate, an official knight of House Lionbloom arrives, leading 2 apprentice knights behind him. He confirms the location, and one of the younger knights nods in acknowledgement. The leader then repeats their mission, to arrest Damien of House Haxon. According to him, it should be an easy task, but he makes it clear that he intends to make them suffer. For him, this is personal revenge for Erwin's humiliation. Just as he speaks, he notices an oldie barely on 1 HP walk by. He calls out to him, asking if he's from Viscount Haxon's household. When the old man confirms, the knight, without hesitation, cuts him down in a flash. Wait, what did Gramps even do? F's in the chat. The knight thinks it's disrespectful for a mere servant not to bow before the lion crest. Meanwhile, the apprentice knight quietly realizes that the old man might have been blind. But the commander doesn't care. Without a hint of remorse, he orders his men to drag Damien out of the estate and to kill everyone else once they're inside. Upon receiving the command, the knights charge forward, heading straight toward Victor, who's casually standing at the front gate, busy cleaning. Deep in the forest, Lady Agnes's team stands together, casually chatting. Agnes explains that the site ended up collapsing, which made it harder to gather as much intel as they'd hoped. Still, she assures them it's fine since everyone did a solid job. But then, out of nowhere, something catches their eyes. Something that stops them dead in their tracks. Upon a rock sits a lone figure, calmly manifesting magic in the most mesmerizing way. Their jaws drop as they watch, stunned. Agnes stares in disbelief, wondering what on earth is happening and how he's even doing it. She finds the whole thing remarkable, even though she has no clue what kind of technique it is. In her mind, she starts piecing things together. That destructive energy technique she handed to Damien must be a cultivation method, and if taken to its highest level, it supposedly allows the user to absorb surrounding mana freely. What shocks her most is that he's reached such a height in just a matter of hours. As Damien snaps out of his focused state, he looks down to see 3 wide-eyed onlookers, Agnes and her team, staring up at him like curious baboons. Agnes can't hold herself back. She bolts straight to him. Damien, calm and casual, glances her way and asks if they're done with their investigation. Right then, Damien's feeling pretty good about the book in his hands, fully absorbed in its contents. Agnes, watching him closely, can't help but notice the impressive progress he's made. It hits him that Agnes wasn't exaggerating when she talked about how rare this book really is. It's the real deal. Hard to get and even harder to master. As a swordsman in his past life, traditional sword techniques don't hold much meaning for him anymore. But this cultivation method is a game changer. Something truly useful, even for someone like him. Come to think of it, the destructive energy technique was specifically designed to compensate for the insane mana drain caused by the destructive sword technique. Thankfully, it's built differently. It collects mana way faster than most other techniques, and can even temporarily pull in external mana from the surroundings. That alone makes it a powerful asset, especially for someone like Damien who needs fuel for high-level combat without burning out. Lady Agnes and Damien catch themselves locking eyes, and for a brief moment, everything seems to pause. The snow-white beauty blushes softly, while the weirdo himself breaks the silence, casually pointing out that it's already dinner time. He suggests they head back together, but out of nowhere, Damien suddenly senses a sharp wave of bloodlust. His instincts scream that the vermin is here. Without wasting a second, he tells Agnes that he's got an urgent errand to take care of and that he'll head out first. He kindly tells her to return at her own pace. Agnes is left stunned, watching him disappear with unbelievable speed, especially considering he used such a small amount of mana. She realizes then, he must be controlling it with incredible precision. Agnes quietly wonders just how far Damien's limits really go. Meanwhile, back at House Haxon, things have taken a violent turn. Knight Lavender is mercilessly beating Victor, landing a gut-wrenching punch straight to his stomach. Victor collapses, begging for mercy, but the knight isn't finished. He keeps cursing Victor with every hit, while Garrick and Ulpus stand by, enjoying the cruel display like it's entertainment. Victor cries out in pain, but it does nothing to move them. That's when Viscount Paul suddenly rushes onto the scene, demanding the knights hold their horses. Garrick instantly recognizes him. It's Paul Haxon, the Viscount himself. Paul hurries to Victor's side, catching him in his arms as the poor guy lies unconscious, bruised and battered. With fury boiling in his eyes, the old man demands to know what kind of knights assault civilians like this, especially when their estate has already done worse to House Lionbloom, and what Victor did is nothing in comparison. With that, Garrick steps forward and announces that the Marquis Lionbloom demands Damien Haxon. He coldly warns them to hand over the young master, or else the land of House Haxon will suffer dearly. The Viscount expected retaliation, but not on this scale. Still, Paul stands firm, calling it a bluff. He declares he won't hand over his son no matter what. In fact, he's certain that even if he did, Lionbloom would still reduce their estate to ashes. With a quiet yet defiant smile, the old man looks Garrick straight in the eye and makes it clear he refuses to give up his son. Garrick, gritting his teeth, says the fool will regret that decision. But it seems they've now left House Lionbloom's knights with no other choice. Garrick gives the order to his sidekicks to destroy everything until that jerk Damien shows himself. The Viscount shouts for them to stop, but a chilling voice suddenly cuts through the chaos, asking if the vermin have completely lost their minds. Everyone freezes as a dark, purplish, toxic aura seeps in from another direction. Garrick turns, sensing the pressure, but has no clue who the man behind that monstrous energy is. Meanwhile, Ulpus and Lavender are paralyzed on the spot. Damien's aura has them frozen stiff, unable to even lift a finger. With calm steps, Damien walks in and kneels beside Victor, checking if his loyal servant is still breathing. One glance is all it takes to stir his rage. His voice sharp but controlled, Damien tells the knights they're lucky Victor's built tough, because if he had died, Damien would have ended every last one of them right here without hesitation. Garrick stiffens at the sheer weight of that threat, and finally puts it together. This guy, This terrifying presence must be the infamous Damien Haxon, and clearly he's got the guts to defy the Marquis himself. Apparently, Garrick scoffs and confirms to himself that Damien's just some deranged madman who's too full of himself. Or maybe he thinks the kid's just gotten cocky after pulling off some cheap trick to beat a noble. Either way, the blonde gorilla has had enough. He snaps at his minions, ordering them to crush Damien's legs and make him kneel before him. Without hesitation, Ulpus and Lavender march forward in perfect sync, ready to carry out the command. But in a flash, Damien whips out his blade, meeting their attacks with flawless precision. Steel clashes and sparks fly. The ace isn't backing down. In fact, he's been looking forward to testing out the mana he's been gathering. With the destructive energy technique now coursing through him, Damien's just getting started. The hero doesn't waste a second. He grabs Lavender's arm and twists it with brutal force, making the knight scream in agony. Then comes a solid punch straight to his chest, launching him across the yard like discarded trash. Damien smirks, never expecting the guinea pigs to line up and come to him so willingly. Seeing his buddy wrecked, Ulpus rushes in to take a shot, but he gets met with a sharp kick to the chin that sends him flying like garbage. Damien's not holding back. He's out here, ready to use his abilities to the fullest. Garrick, the Lionbloom family's official knight, steps onto the scene, heading straight for Damien. He's shocked to see this guy not falling for Lord Irwin's cheap tricks. Still, it doesn't sit right with him how Damien practically crushed Ulpus. Those mad skills are not something Garrick ever expected him to have. Damien brushes it off, saying there's no need to go that deep. But Garrick suddenly shifts into this dramatic mode, like all the puzzle pieces just clicked for him. Damien's completely confused, and that's when this blonde gorilla of a knight claims that Damien isn't actually Damien Haxon, but an imposter. His father, Viscount Haxon, holding Victor, is completely stunned by such a wild accusation, thrown even deeper into confusion. Even Damien looks disgusted that this gorilla-brained knight could think he's dumb enough to pull a stunt like that. But the blonde gorilla keeps yelling, saying Damien must stop lying, that he's not the kind of guy who falls for traps, and that this is clearly a setup by the field dogs to stop the Lionblooms from rising. The man keeps going on, insisting that Damien isn't the real Damien Haxon. And honestly, the rant is starting to get boring for Damien. He calls him a fake poser, just some hired hand sent to take down Lord Irwin and drag the good name of House Lionbloom through the dirt. Garrick starts reaching for his sword, calling them all a bunch of lowly jerks for throwing mud at the Lionblooms and daring to mess with them. Damien can't believe this King Kong wannabe's got a brain the size of a pinball. Lavender's lying on the ground pretending to be knocked out just to stay out of the mess. Viscount Haxon calls out to his son, while Victor quietly prays for Lord Damien's victory against Garrick. That's when Garrick pulls out his sword and charges at Damien, probably aiming to chop his head clean off. No doubt he can tell this fake Damien's got skills, but he figures the guy's luck has finally run out. The old fool's got it all planned. Once Damien gets just half a step closer, the moment he's within his range in the blink of an eye, he's going to split him in two. With that thought, Garrick swings his blade right at Damien's neck, ready to slice it in half. But Damien dodges it fast, flashing a smirk. He knows the Lionblooms didn't send a clown this time. They sent a real knight. The gorilla can't believe this poser just parried his thrust, but brushes it off, thinking it's just a lucky fluke. The knight is furious seeing the poser deflect his attacks, so he charges at Damien again, this time unleashing a wave of fire with his strike. He shouts at the lad to try blocking this one, daring him to handle something with real heat. Damien stands there, cool as ever, blocking the attacks like they're nothing but a puff of air. He mocks the blonde gorilla for being too slow for such a big guy, and that pushes Garrick over the edge. But now it's Damien's turn. He whips out his sword and dashes forward at full speed, aiming straight for Garrick's forehead. Damien's so fast that Garrick can barely even see him, let alone his attacks. In a blink, Damien lands a solid kick to his face, sending him rolling across the ground like a piece of trash. The big guy's down, catching his breath, while Damien coolly says that kick was for Victor. Garrick pulls himself back up, using his bloodied arm for support and muttering curses under his breath. In no time, he charges at Damien again, sword blazing with fire. But even his ultimate lion's mighty sword of speed doesn't shake Damien's confidence. The ace meets it head-on, letting the tip of his blade collide with Garrick's. The impact shatters Garrick's sword into a spray of metal shards, leaving his jaw hanging mid-run. And before he can react, Damien's sword drives straight into his shoulder, slicing it off in one go. Garrick's mind was losing it under pain, with his mouth coughing up blood. Dude drops to the ground. Viscount and Victor can't believe it's Damien's strength to beat an official knight. Garrick whines that it's hurting, but applies warm pressure to his wound. Right then, Damien slides his blade closer to this gorilla's face, threatening to chop it off. Pretty quickly, this old fool starts begging for his life, not knowing who he messed up with. Damien tells him outright that he is Damien Haxon, saying that he should have begged for his life much earlier. Now it's a little too late when he messed up with his family and made his ugly servant even uglier. Now this begging session won't work. Garrick begs for forgiveness for what happened earlier. Damien isn't impressed by the way he apologizes. Not his style. So the ace turns away and leaves the blonde fool to his father and Victor, who both look more than ready to beat the crap out of him. The official knight of the Lionbloom family, Garrick, along with his sidekicks Olpus and Lavender, is walking out in pure shame. Their bodies are wrecked, all thanks to a guy named Damien Haxon, who even sliced off Garrick's hand. Turns out, Damien gave his not-so-pretty servant Victor full permission to beat them to a pulp. Victor still didn't feel fully satisfied and wondered if he could land a few more hits, but Damien told him that if he went any further, Garrick would definitely die. Victor casually suggested cutting off another limb or two instead, since Garrick looked close to crying. The old fool was dragging himself away like some horror-struck wreck, and Damien was honestly liking the idea of treating Garrick like their personal toy. Just then, Viscount Haxon stepped in and told Damien that it was enough. Right on cue, Garrick landed at the Viscount's feet, admitting he was totally in the wrong and apologizing for all the disrespect he had shown him. However, Paul isn't letting it slide that easily. The old man says that this gorilla's apology better be worth something after all the chaos he caused. He points out that if his son didn't have this level of strength, their entire territory could have been wiped out. On top of that, the Marquis family would have dragged them out by their limbs and made them suffer badly. Garrick slams his head to the ground, bowing and begging for forgiveness, pleading for mercy. But Viscount Haxon's anger isn't cooling down. With just a glance from Paul, Damien finally slides his blade back into its case, saying he wasn't actually planning to kill this trash. He knows that taking Garrick's life would mess up the relationship with House Lionbloom and tear their ties apart. Honestly, Damien admits that if it were just him, he wouldn't hesitate to take on the Marquis family alone, no matter the odds. But he can't afford to act solo when he's got his own family to think about first. And he's not that stupid either. He's well aware that if he sends these dumbnuts back like this, they'll definitely try to retaliate. Now it's just plain tiresome to figure out what to do with this troublesome trio. Then, out of nowhere, Lady Agnes comes running in, calling out to Damien and demanding to know what's going on. The ace is completely thrown off by her sudden appearance, but then it hits him. Lady Agnes might actually be useful right now. So he quickly fills her in on the whole mess, and she gets the picture. Once she understands Damien's concerns, this beauty's fully on board to back him up. Damien asks if she's got any clever ideas up her sleeve, and she pauses. Then thanks House Haxon for successfully taking down one of Yulin's executive officers for the first time ever. That's no small feat. With that win, Lady Agnes figures she can officially recognize House Haxon as an allied household, which honestly does ease Damien's mind a bit. Not to mention, Viscount Haxon and Victor exchange a knowing glance, both realizing that if this plan works out, their family might just dodge a major crisis. Meanwhile, Damien's pulling his best puppy-eyed look, trying to charm Lady Agnes into accepting his request, asking if she can really make it happen. The girl's clearly dazzled by him and is totally ready to grant the favor. Deep down, this wicked smooth talker had been aiming for something like this all along. Protection from the church. In the back, Paul and Victor watch their son's little flirt game work like magic on the noble lady. Lady Agnes agrees to Damien's request without a second thought. With that, Damien makes sure everyone hears him loud and clear, ordering that this matter be reported to House Lionbloom immediately. He tells the troublesome trio of knights to go back and inform their boss that House Haxon is now under the protection of the church. The ace straight up said that if they tried to force again, the church would hit them with everything they've got. Damien shoots a deathly glare at those scumbags, giving them one final warning without saying a word. Then he tells them to get the heck out. Right away, Garrick and his sidekicks, Olpus and Lavender, dash toward the exit like their lives depend on it, thanking Damien for his mercy as they flee. The whole thing fires up Victor's spirits, and he mocks them, saying they got lucky today. He's clearly thrilled to see how Damien's strength made those brutes run off with their tails between their legs. Now they can finally catch their breath and relax a little. However, Paul's not so sure about that. He reminds them they still need to figure out what happens next. For now, he decides to hold a family meeting to discuss everything further. Later, once all the high officials are gathered, the meeting kicks off. Paul opens by briefly touching on the issue of how to handle their feud with House Lionbloom, which has definitely become a growing concern. Abel, fully suited up in the nerdiest way possible, turns to his father and asks why this meeting even matters if they're already secured by the church. He doesn't quite get the point of worrying about the feud at all, now that they've got the church watching their backs. That said, Louise steps in and points out that they're not really in a position to expect the church to fully protect them or step in when things get serious. Come to think of it, Paul agrees with his daughter. He explains that the church usually avoids getting too deeply involved in noble affairs, especially ones that could spark political backlash. Besides, the true power of the Lionbloom family doesn't just come from their military strength, it runs much deeper than that. The Viscount is fully aware of the power struggle they're caught in against the Lionblooms, who could crush smaller noble families like theirs in countless ways if they really wanted to. Thinking about the wisest way to handle the situation, he figures the most realistic option is to pay them off, a decent sum to keep House Haxon out of further trouble. If that doesn't work, the second option would be to seek protection under a high-ranking noble who could shield them from the Lionbloom's reach. Lady Agnes listens to Paul's reasoning and understands that, realistically, entering the protection of another great house might be their safest move. Still, she speaks up, suggesting there could be one more option. Without missing a beat, she slides in her favorite idea, making Damien a paladin. She says that if he becomes one, it would solve all their problems at once. Damien's face says it all. He's had enough of this nonsense. He didn't expect this to be tossed into the middle of a serious meeting, but it's too late now. With everyone in the room staring at him, waiting for a response, Damien straight up rejects the idea. Paul doesn't try to force it either. He respects his son's decision and considers the option off the table. On the other hand, Abel is clearly flinching at the mention of it. Suddenly, the nerd slams the table, demanding his father's attention. When Paul turns to him, Abel questions why he accepted Damien's refusal so easily. He argues that if Damien became a paladin, all their problems would be over. But it's obvious. Abel's trying to sabotage his brother, pushing him into a path that would keep them from ever clashing again. Damien knows exactly what Abel's doing, running his mouth and stepping into things that don't concern him. Damien's completely disgusted by this punk. Abel catches the look on his face and snaps, asking what's with that nasty expression. The nerdo throws all the blame on Damien, saying the whole ruckus happened because of him, so he better take responsibility. Since it's all his fault, Abel demands that Damien become a paladin and fix it. But before he can go on, Paul shoots Abel a glare so sharp it shakes the whole room, reminding him there's a guest present and he better sit down and act with some manners. That shuts Abel up real quick. No doubt Paul agrees that Damien's actions sparked the feud with the Lionblooms, but he also knows it's not entirely his fault. Then Paul drops the real bomb. Lionbloom's second son had lustful intentions toward Louise. The old man knows that if Damien hadn't stepped in, that guy wouldn't have backed off easily. In short, their son protected Louise in place of a powerless father who couldn't act. Marilda and Louise quietly console Paul, seeing the weight he carries. Just then, the proud figure of Viscount Haxon rises, walks over, and pats Damien on the shoulder, telling him he did well today. The old man is genuinely proud of his son for saving the family's honor, standing tall against the insult to their house, and giving those loafers exactly what they deserved. That moment sparks a warm feeling in Damien's heart, something he never expected to feel. He quietly says it was just something he had to do. Paul decides to take matters into his own hands for now, asking everyone to let him act like their father for once. But just then, the butler walks in with news that someone from House Goldpixie has arrived. Paul has no idea what business they'd have with them now. Turns out, their young master Damien borrowed money using the family's wheat fields as collateral, and the repayment deadline has already passed. The real shock, they've already sold the fields off. Damien's caught completely off guard, not expecting his luck to crash this fast. Paul's face turns dark, rage building fast, and in a full-blown fury, he grabs Damien by the neck and starts choking him, cursing his very existence. One man lifts his hat for a moment to show respect to young Master Damien, wishing him a good day. Damien squints, vaguely recognizing the guy. It's Olin Demishi, the West Branch manager of Dash and Cash, standing beside his personal guard. It's been a while since they last met, but Olin's here on official business, showing up right on the repayment date they previously agreed upon. This wicked guy casually pulls out the contract that young Master Damien signed, reminding him that he agreed to use his family's land as collateral. He flashes a smug smile, saying that's how he could assure Damien he'd get the money in the first place. Then, with a smooth tone, he presents the paperwork to make it all official, calling it just a simple formality. He tells Damien there's no need to worry at all, like everything's perfectly under control. The old man snaps, saying that someone of such low birth could never take land from a noble like him. Meanwhile, Damien starts to piece things together, finally remembering that Olin is the one who manipulated him into handing over the land deed in the first place. He can't help but question what made him even agree to such a thing. Looking the man in the eye, Damien asks how much he actually owes him. Olin calmly replies that he borrowed 200 gold, and with interest, the total now comes to 300 gold. That amount sends shockwaves through Damien's brain, making his jaw practically hit the floor. He stares at Olin in disbelief, asking if the number is actually correct. Olin, with that same smug calmness, simply tells him to go ahead and read the contract. Damien struggles to even remember why he borrowed the money in the first place. It feels like it happened ages ago. But one thing he knows for sure is that their family doesn't have that kind of gold lying around. At this rate, he's convinced he's about to drag his entire household into poverty, left begging for coins like filthy, homeless barbarians. His family would be tossed into the streets with nothing to eat, and the thought crushes Damien. Olin then coldly declares that if the debt isn't paid by today, the land used as collateral will officially become the property of Dash and Cash. Damien fires back, reminding him that he said the collateral was just a formality. Olin, still calm and smug, admits he did say that, but things have changed. Duke Goldpixie has ordered them to collect on all outstanding debts, no exceptions. It doesn't matter if it's from nobles or commoners. He then advises Damien to gather the money and casually asks if he even has that kind of sum. Damien, stunned to his core, confesses he hasn't prepared anything for repayment. That's the exact answer Olin was hoping for. Deep inside, he's thrilled, though he keeps up a fake look of concern for the young master. With a lazy air, he drops onto the couch like he owns it, saying Damien should have thought twice before borrowing money in the first place. Then he snaps his fingers, and two towering gorilla-like bodyguards step forward, locking deadly stares on Damien. Olin insists on handling the situation his way now, fully aware that Damien can't repay the debt on his own. As much as he likes collecting money, what he truly enjoys are moments like this, watching arrogant nobles fall to their knees, groveling, humiliated, and licking his shoes. Now, Olin's practically buzzing with excitement just imagining what kind of face Damien will make next. The thought alone sends a chill down his spine. It's the kind of thrill he lives for. Meanwhile, in a totally different vibe, Marilda and Louise are casually sipping tea while the Viscount paces around like a madman, eaten up by stress. Abel's sulking on the sidelines, probably cursing his own existence at this point. Marilda gently offers the Viscount a seat, telling him to rest before he ends up carving a hole in the ground with all that frantic pacing. Even Louise tells her father to calm down a little. But the old man's at his limit, practically pulling his hair out in frustration, burdened by the disaster his sons dragged them into. Paul's on the verge of losing his mind, knowing full well they can't just sit around when their entire future is hanging by a thread. Marilda casually sips her tea, calm as ever, and tells them to trust Damien. He took the matter into his own hands, and all they can do now is wait. Even Louise backs him up, saying Damien's never let them down whenever he stepped forward. The Viscount knows that's true, but he also points out that it's only because his swordsmanship is top tier. Still, combat skills and negotiation skills are two completely different things. Just as he says that, in a flash, Damien proves himself again. He slams Olin's sidekick's face straight into the ground with brutal force, hard enough to crack the floor beneath them. Olin is totally stunned by what just happened, frozen with shock as chills run down his spine. After knocking out those two King Kongs, Damien knows full well his father's going to flip and start yelling again, especially since they just fixed that wall. The remaining bodyguard doesn't waste time, drawing his blade and lunging at Damien with a curse, clearly aiming to slice his head off. But Damien doesn't flinch. He smoothly catches the guy mid-strike, grabbing him by the throat and choking him right there. He glares, insulted that some scumbag dared to draw a weapon on a noble, calmly calling it self-defense. Now that he's got a valid excuse, Damien turns to Olin with a nasty smirk, making the man squirm. As Damien steps closer, he tells him to loosen up his legs, and Olin obeys like a frightened puppy. Damien drops the aggression for a second and speaks civilly, saying he can't make the payment right now. Olin, completely rattled, has no issue with that anymore. Then Damien grips his shoulder tightly, leaning in and saying he'd like to pay in another way. Olin feels a cold sweat forming, the chill in his spine growing worse, terrified of what's coming next. The next day, Abel gloomily tells his father that violence won over justice, and that truth alone breaks his heart. Meanwhile, Marilda and Louise warmly chat with Damien, reminding him to eat well on his trip and take care. On his knees, Abel looks up to the sky, asking God why, but Paul shuts him down, telling the nerdo to cheer for his brother instead of crying like a baby. Even so, the Viscount has second thoughts, wondering if their plan will actually work out in the end. Lady Agnes, standing nearby, says it's a pity they have to part ways now. Damien thanks her sincerely for everything she's done. The White Beauty mentions that their investigation is nearly wrapped up, so they'll likely be returning home tomorrow. She wishes him a journey full of blessings, and Damien gives her a grateful nod. Then, she adds, just in case he changes his mind. But Damien already knows where she's going with that. He gives her a calm, firm look and assures her that nothing will change his mind about what she wants. Afterward, Victor finishes loading up Damien's luggage, and with all the goodbyes done, the dude climbs into the carriage. Surprisingly, Olin is accompanying him. Olin assures the ace that he'll make sure nothing disrupts the trip. Damien actually likes the sound of that and gives him a nod of approval for the change in attitude. He even throws in a casual request. He'd like a lobster for lunch if Olin's really bringing that kind of energy. Victor hops in as well, and with everything set, the carriage finally rolls out, heading straight for House Gold Pixie. The lavish carriage pulled over, and the three-man party could finally stretch their legs. In front of them was the luxurious ducal mansion. The Gold Pixie family, rumored to be the wealthiest in the kingdom, truly lives up to their name. Damien turned to his personal servant/loan shark and thanked him for the comfortable journey. He could tell that this Orlandimici guy was fuming due to how he was treated like a dog the whole time they were on the road. With a phony smile, he wished the young noble well while cursing him to the depths of hell inwardly. With confident strides, it's time to put Damien's next move into action. He was directly escorted to request an audience with the wealthy sovereign. Adam Gold Pixie, the Duke of Apple Kingdom, examined the brat from the Hoxton family with discerning eyes. Of course, our boy behaved formally and politely like a proper noble would. Without wasting any more time, the Duke asked the young man his reason for this sudden visit. Damien frankly confessed that he borrowed money from the dukedom's loan company, and the date of repayment was fast approaching. He also disclosed that he does not have the money to pay the debt off. With that in mind, he wanted to propose another way to settle the bill. Instead of paying in cash, he wanted to pay by representing the Gold Pixie dukedom to defeat the Lionbloom family once and for all. The Duke seemed intrigued, while his inner circle was taken aback. Adam Gold Pixie chortled at the sudden proposal. It sounds like the young man did his homework and came to him after hearing some rumors. Well, within the Apple Kingdom, the hottest gossip circulating around is the recent development in the border between the Lionbloom Marquisate and the Gold Pixie dukedom. A large gold mine was recently discovered, making it a point of contention. The two families have been rivals for a long time now. The discovery of riches is the breaking point. Now, they are preparing for a duel between low-class knights to settle the generational beef and determine the ownership of the mine. In Damien's past life, the outcome was quite a definitive one. The duel would end in Lionbloom's complete and overwhelming victory at the hands of their rising star. Afterward, the Lionbloom Marquisate would leverage the wealth extracted from the gold mine to rapidly expand its power. In contrast, the Gold Pixie dukedom would slowly lose its influence. To sum it up, helping the Duke win this upcoming match would kill two birds with one stone. Not only can Damien pay his debt, but he can also keep those Lionbloom bastards in check. Adam Gold Pixie was drawn to the young man's boldness. He had also heard rumors about the Hoxton heir taking down the second son of the Lionbloom family and crushing a major crime enterprise in Landwalk City. Those accomplishments certainly boost his credibility, so there's no need to deny them. His arrival is just right on time. Currently, the Duke has been having a hard time finding a suitable knight for the duel anyway. Damien confidently declared that he was the perfect candidate, dubbing himself as the only low-class knight who can stand toe-to-toe against the Lionbloom heir. Saying that he can defeat Michael Lionbloom is quite a daring claim. He's known as a generational genius after all. While there is no denying that the kid is impressive, Damien is a whole other beast. But while he was selling himself as the rightful representative, one of the Duke's knights butted in to oppose his claims based on exaggerated rumors. Besides, Lady Chelsea Goldpixie is still on the road trying to find a suitable candidate. Middle-class knight Ernst Horwitz is not even hiding his disdain for Damien. It has been a month since the Grand Duchess Chelsea ventured out to find a knight that could cut down Michael Lionbloom. Her supporters are confident that she will pull it off. Horwitz continued trying to dissuade the Duke from disregarding his daughter's efforts, telling him to trust the process. Duke Adam listened to his knight and accepted the validity of his words. Damien suddenly felt an itch to strangle this skinny knight, spoiling his moment. He looks like a chewed-up bone that an orc spat out. He values the advice of his retainers, so he asked Damien to defend his proposal. For this scenario, he'll just have to show his qualifications through actions for maximum effect. So he boldly blurted out that not picking him would be a massive mistake. If Gold Pixie wants to win the duel, Damien is the only right choice. Whoever the Grand Duchess brings won't even compare. To back up his claim, he challenged the skinny knight to a little contest. Boney should take up his blade, and Damien will block his strike. If he can block an attack from a mid-class knight, then that should be enough proof that he's the real deal. It was a successful rage bait. Horwitz wanted nothing more than to teach the brat a lesson if the Duke gave the permission to do so. Fascinated and excited, Adam gave them the green light for an exhibition match. A few moments later, the training ground was prepared to be the venue. The combatants mean-mugged each other while the Duke and his posse watched. Victor just arrived, only to find his young master mixed up with some bullshit again. He looked at his boss's opponent and felt the fire of rage burning inside the knight. This is what happens when rage-baiting goes too far. The dukedom's Guardian knight, Jael Heinrich, stood beside the Duke and presided over the match. When given the go signal, Sir Horwitz stood ramrod straight like he had a stick up his ass and offered the arrogant young man a last chance to kneel and surrender. In response, Damien yawned and demanded that they hurry up this little test. Limited to only one decisive strike, the mid-class knight made sure to bring out every bit of mana he had, manipulating the flow to converge on his spear's tip. Sensing the dangerous amounts of power coalescing, Damien worries that he might have rage-baited the guy a little too far. With his face grimacing with rage, Sir Horwitz aimed his tip at the arrogant bumpkin with killing intent. As fast as lightning, he closed the gap while gathering absurd amounts of momentum. It was an impressive opening, but if Damien knows where the strike's path is, blocking it should not be hard. He raised his sword with a clear view of the spear's tip, ready to defend with perfect placement. At the last second, Horwitz's tip seemingly bent and snaked its way past his defense. It was a minuscule change in angle, but it left the young man's chest wide open. With perfect precision, his sword crumbled and shattered in half. Upon feeling the sensation of steel fragmenting under his strength, Horwitz knew that the fool fell for his dubious trap. Without a blade to bear the brunt of the attack, the spear tip continued roaring until it reached Damien's chest, drawing his blood. The Duke was taken aback, and Victor felt his stomach turn upside down at the sight of his young master's blood. Much to everyone's surprise, Damien regained his balance and did not fall. He looked like he was in pain, but he remained standing. Horwitz could not believe his eyes. A mere low-class knight should not be able to withstand his surprise attack. Breaking the silence in the training ground, the young man wiped his blood with a grin and asked the Duke if this was enough proof to give him the representative position. Seeing his master safe and conscious, Victor ran onto the stage and rushed him with a concerned hug. It was definitely more painful than the knight's spear strike. Damien had to wrestle off his loyal attendant on account of his chest wound. The Duke immediately followed, pleased with the show he just put on. Withstanding Horwitz's strike is no easy feat. Frankly, Duke Adam was a little skeptical at first, but he just saw how capable the kid was. He's got a gem in his hands. So, he turned to his retainers and proudly announced that Damien Haxon, after proving his strength admirably, shall be appointed as the Gold Pixie family's representative. Horwitz tried to bitch about the outcome of the exhibition, but the Duke quickly shut him up with a sharp glare. Adam is in a good mood right now. If someone ruins it, who knows what might happen. Horwitz was in shambles. He recalled what happened in his head over and over. He was certain that the attack landed cleanly. There's a reason why he has mid in his title and whore in his name. Honestly, Damien, as he is right now, is already beyond the middle class of the knight hierarchy. Since only low-class knights are permitted to participate in the upcoming duel, he has to hold back and fake his level. He had to make sure that his performance was convincing enough to fool anyone. He had to resort to using a magic shield to defend himself and dampen the spear's force for a split second. If he got the timing wrong, he could have been in real danger. The Duke assessed his condition and saw signs of some light internal damage. Duke Adam can't let his new blade get damaged like this. He tapped his ring and opened his subspace storage. A magic item like that must be expensive as fuck. The wise Duke retrieved an ornate box from the subspace and offered its contents to Damien as a gift. Inside the box were 5 little golden balance pills. He had to pay a high price to get these things from the alchemy school. Knights usually take these precious pills during training, but it's also an excellent remedy for internal injuries. Damien graciously accepted the gift and extended his gratitude. With that, the Duke cemented their new working relationship. The young Baron's plan is progressing smoothly. The next day came. Damien spent the night in one of the mansion's lavish rooms. Today he came to check out the training facilities. He was quite surprised at the efficacy of the balance pills. His internal injuries from yesterday practically healed overnight. He didn't have time to look around yesterday, but as expected of the Duke's household, they have top-notch training equipment everywhere. Coming to this place was the right call. Now, he gets to train using some good shit. While he was admiring the weapon rack, someone with a squeaky voice called his name in an arrogant tone. He looked ahead to see a shorty that had to stand on top of a platform just to reach the same height as him. When asked what's up, some douchebag named Pavel Vermond, a low-class knight of Gold Pixie dukedom, flashily introduced himself. As for the 2 goons behind him, they are his sworn brothers. These 3 were also selected to participate in the upcoming match against the Lion Blooms. Pavel claimed that they were out training in the field yesterday, so they were not around to witness the shit show. He claimed that if they had been there, they would have stepped in and easily dispatched Damien instead of getting Sir Horwitz involved. Pavel sees the duel with Lion Bloom as a matter of honor for their house. Now they can only hope that an outsider's mediocre skills won't drag the team down. With that being said, Shorty warned Damien never to interrupt their intense training. He quietly walked away since he preferred training on his own anyway. In addition, he's quite curious about the level of skill his teammates possess. Now is a chance to see them in action. After quickly getting into their positions, Pavel gave his brothers the go signal with a loud harumph. Leading the 3 stooges, Pavel Vermond gets into his flag-style, immovable king technique. He looked like he was holding in his piss. On the opposing corner, the lanky one performed his secret technique, Vermilion Bird Ascension, though it would be more fitting to call it an awkward chicken jump. The 2 bumped wooden swords with little to no impact. They looked deathly serious, for this was their 987th duel. For a bunch of noobs with such weak-ass techniques, they seem to think that they are the main characters. After breaking off the shitty stalemate, Pavel grabbed the chance to wave his sword around randomly in hopes of landing one strike against his buddy. Lanky had to matrix dodge his way out of the chaotically sweeping sword. As soon as the wild swings died down, he grabbed the opportunity to turn the table. With all his might, he struck down with his wooden blade and landed a clean hit on Pavel's head with his eyes closed. When he opened his eyes, he was in awe of brother Pavel's genius planning. Lanky got it into his head that Shorty somehow saw through his attack and blocked it with his forehead. Look at this dude, bleeding and crying in pain. He's definitely a mastermind. They broke off and gave their respects to each other. Pavel tried his best to stay conscious while insisting that this round was a draw. Afterward, Fatty walked up the stage for his turn at a spar, and Pavel stammered that he just needed to take a little break first. There is only a month left until the duel, and they somehow think that this type of training will make them strong enough to sweep through the Lion Bloom Knights to protect the honor of the Duke's house. They raised their puny little wooden swords and shouted corny "They're all for one for all" chant. At this rate, these three are on track to being humiliated by Lion Bloom Knights. Off to the side, Damien quietly watched with a continuously worsening dark expression. He was so focused on securing his spot as a representative that he did not take his would-be teammates into account. Now, he's feeling a sense of impending doom upon seeing the clowns he has to share a stage with. He might have been as strong as an actual god in his past life. He served as the blade that brought the entire world to ruin. Yet these three idiots make him feel completely powerless. In his office, the Duke is in high spirits after securing a pretty good proxy for the duel. He's laughing at what just transpired with his guardian knight and the young pup last night. After the trial with Sir Horwitz, Duke Adam called Damien up to his room to offer the tutelage of Jael Heinrich himself. But the young man politely refused, insisting on training by himself. A night had passed since then, and the Duke still couldn't hold his laughter. Damien Haxon is quite an amusing fellow. Being his most trusted aide, he asked the Guardian Knight for an honest evaluation of Damien. Sir Heinrich stoically rated the young man highly. He was the only one who saw the kid use mana for a split second to block Horwitz's spear. Not anyone can just pull that off with that much control. As for their chances to defeat Michael Lionbloom, it's still hard to tell with certainty. Since 3 duelists will be selected to participate, the first team to win 2 rounds will take the match. Even if Damien Haxon wins his bout, it's not a guarantee to win it all. To get the dub, the rest of their local knights must perform well too. That is why they are training under Sebastian Vincenzo, a middle-class knight. The Duke thinks that there is no need to worry, given Sebastian's capabilities. But if you ask Damien, he would tell you that the local knights are a hopeless bunch. He's been watching them fool around and call it training. They are incredibly stupid. Their stamina is hot garbage. They practice swordsmanship with all style and no substance. They have no drip and no hose. With great reluctance, he has no other choice but to step in to prevent a stain on his record. So, he called the 3 Stooges over. While he was putting on handicap weights in his arms and legs, he challenged them to a spar. With a cocky grin, Pavel the Shorty praised his guts for challenging them even after seeing their impeccable skills. He volunteered to go first, and Damien looked at Shorty like he's a dumbass. He cannot afford to waste time by whipping them one by one. It would be best if they just came at him all at once while he's wearing Rock Lee weights. Of course, the challenge hurt the pride of the 3 Stooges. To demonstrate their stupidity even further, they tossed their wooden swords away, thinking they could pummel Damien with their bare hands. Even though it's against the chivalry code, the 3 jumped into action with a synchronized attack. With angry fists a few inches away from him, Damien was not in the least bit threatened. 5 minutes later, Pavel woke up discombobulated. He's lying on the floor while staring at the ceiling. Getting from his daze, he racked his brain, trying to remember what the hell just happened. A few meters from him were Lanky and Fatty, who were still sleeping like babies. As Damien thought, this group was simply pathetic in combat. By his side, Victor is stressed over his young master, which causes another scene. The last thing Pavel remembers was jumping into action alongside his boys, launching a multi-angle attack. After forcing himself to remember what transpired afterwards, he recalled bits and pieces of what happened. First, Damien nonchalantly moved his head out of Fatty's attack. Then, he let Lanky hit nothing but air, leading to a loss of balance. With 2 quick chops to the back of their necks, he dropped the goons to the mat without much trouble. Since the side characters are out for the count, the delusional Shorty was literally left in the air. He braced himself for impact, trying to sneak a punch in, but was clobbered on the chin instead. Just to add salt to the already wounded pride, Damien followed up with another brutal strike. He unleashed a barrage of attacks like he was juggling a noob on a fighting game, breaking and dislocating every bone in Pavel's little body. It was then that his mind broke and blacked out everything. The outsider really overpowered the pride and joy of the dukedom's knight order. What kind of monster can do that at the low-class night level without even breaking a drop of sweat? After whipping them up to shape, Damien had essentially beaten the three to complete submission. When asked who their instructor was, Pavel stuttered the name of Sir Sebastian Vincenzo. Damien could not believe that someone at the middle-class level trained a bunch of kids to be so pathetic. Honestly, they would be better off ditching that lousy-ass teacher, but there's no need to start drama. So, to supplement their trashy education, Damien demanded that the three come to him to spar after formal training every day. Pavel worries that if Sir Vincenzo finds out about such an arrangement, the knight might take it the wrong way. Fortunately, Damien is so well versed in beating people up that he can do it without leaving a single mark or injury. Come to think of it, Shorty clearly felt his bones breaking and dislocating while he was getting thrashed, yet he woke up without a scratch. You see, Damien learned how to beat people up in a very specific way back in his Death Knight days. Long ago, there was a man who traveled the continent making a living with criminal reformation. He was widely known as the character corrector. His method was very crude and simple. Inmates that misbehave get their asses handed to them. He would beat them up for an hour straight. If that did not work, he would double the beating time. Rumor has it that he once beat a criminal continuously for 512 hours straight. Over time, Character Corrector began to feel pity for the criminals he left bloodied and mangled. Instead of quitting his job, he devised a technique to beat someone up endlessly without endangering their lives. With countless hours of practice on these poor criminals, he had reached mastery over the bizarre technique. He called the state Amsa or My Kill. It's just one of the many techniques that Damien picked up in his past life. Inflicting unbearable pain without leaving a single scratch is quite useful in times like these. Today, he made the Three Stooges face the fact that they are just pathetic worms. But there's no need to worry. They have a whole month to turn worms into something else. Within that time frame, Damien will make sure that they become something useful. The Three Stooges felt a very painful month coming their way. Before they could get back to today's training, the Duke's personal attendant interrupted with urgency. He came running to inform Damien that he was being summoned by Duke Adam. Well, his presence has been requested since the Grand Duchess Chelsea Goldpixie returned. Straight out of her long travels, she paid respects to her father. The Grand Duchess bent her knee with a strapping knight alongside her. There was no one more pleased to see her return than Sir Horwitz. Even though he was humiliated yesterday, Lady Chelsea has arrived to correct what's wrong. Duke Adam welcomed her with indifference and asked if the man behind her is the knight she chose to enter into the upcoming duel. With a confident and sly smile, she presented the hulking warrior. At first glance, the Duke didn't seem impressed. In fact, he looked sus. The man stood up, displaying his tall frame. With a roaring voice, he introduced himself as Guillaume Blackwing, also known as the Wild Beast. Some of the Duke's retainers recognized the name. The Wild Beast is the famed Free Knight. Combat nerds across the kingdom have heard tales of what happened when he took part in the Acclinant Kingdom's conflict. In one battle, Guillaume was credited with wiping out every opposing low-class knight. The streets are saying that there's no match for him at his level. Even the Duke had heard tales about the Wild Beast and his exploits. He was granted the nickname for a reason. For that, Duke Adam's interest was piqued. Lady Chelsea proudly announced that Sir Guillaume had already pledged loyalty to her name and had agreed to participate in the upcoming duel. She is extremely confident that this man would be the answer to their Michael Lionbloom problem. In terms of reputation alone, Sir Guillaume could be considered a bigger name. If Michael Lionbloom is still in the making, the Wild Beast is already complete. While this would have been great news a few days ago, Sir Guillaume's arrival is a bit of a headache now. Lady Chelsea did not like seeing her father hesitate at all. To explain, Duke Adam introduced the young man he picked for the job as Goldpixie's representative. Sir Damien Haxon arrived just in time to aura farm and stunt on everyone. Of course, Lady Chelsea did not like this breaking news at all. She's been on the road for a whole month, working her ass off to give the dukedom a shot at winning, only to find out that the position was already filled without her knowledge. Looking unhinged, she asked Daddy to just change the representative to her pick so they could square this mistake away. The Duke maintained a neutral stance and swore to keep the suggestion in mind. With Daddy not backing her up right away, Lady Chelsea threw a tantrum. She's never even heard of the name Damien Haxon before. She thinks it's only natural to choose someone with a great deal of accomplishments under his belt over a nobody. Damien does not like being treated like some background extra. On the other hand, Sir Guillaume Blackwing is looking at him with palpable mockery. For some reason, the young man picked up a really bad vibe from the Wild Beast. The Duke listened to his daughter's ravings and calmly defended the young man he appointed. He brought up the fact that Sir Damien was skilled enough to withstand a full-powered blow from Horwitz. Being reminded of what transpired shook the toothpick knight. Lady Chelsea finally dropped all formalities and called out her daddy for always looking for the perfect excuse to undermine her abilities. Chelsea started babbling about the Duke's treatment of his family, and Adam warned her to watch her tongue in front of the guests. Preventing herself from crossing the line, the Grand Duchess excused her behavior, citing the fatigue from long-distance travel clouding her judgment. Everyone in the room could see and feel that the father and daughter had some deep-seated issues between them. Declaring the meeting over, the Duke dismissed everyone and promised to consult his retainers before coming up with a final decision on who would get the job. Out of nowhere, Sir Guillaume erupted with a boisterous laugh. He dropped all formalities and asserted that there is no point in deciding with just words. Offended by such brutish words against the Duke, Guardian Knight Heinrich almost drew his blade right then and there. The wild beast continued by saying that the strongest one should naturally represent the Gold Pixie Dukedom. They can just keep it simple and find that out right now. Lady Chelsea reprimanded her knight for speaking out of turn when she specifically told him to stay quiet. Knowing that the brute's words have some truth to them, the Duke asked Damien what he thinks of the veiled challenge. To be frank, all these tests are getting tiresome. Either way, he's also aware that the fastest way to resolve the situation is by showing a bit of force. So he agreed with Sir Guillaume's sentiment, but proposed that they settle this dispute without an actual fight. He extended his hand, wordlessly offering a simple contest of sheer strength. In addition, there is something he would like to confirm by touching hands. Once again, Sir Guillaume laughed his ass off and warned the young man about the dangers of losing an arm. Matching his threats, Damien announced that he would be nice and settle for just pulling the brute's shoulder out of its rightful place. Feeling offended by the trash talk, the wild beast pounced at the young man's arm like it owed him money. He moved as fast as he could and with as much intensity as he could muster. But in the end, his whole body got flipped upside down in front of everyone watching. Damien showed off his judo skills by taking down an opponent much bigger than he is. You know you just did something shocking when even old Heinrich here is at a loss for words. Sir Horwitz, on the other hand, felt his already sunken cheeks sink even deeper. Lady Chelsea was closer to the action than everyone else, but it happened so fast that she could not make sense of what transpired. Sir Heinrich inwardly praised the young man for such a remarkable show of skill and finesse. With his veteran vision, he clearly saw Guillaume go for Damien's hand first. But that young pup skillfully turned the giant's raw power against him, flinging him aside like a sack of shit. His physical ability is top-notch, but his technique is the aspect to watch out for. Instead of accepting his loss like a real knight, Sir Guillaume quickly collected himself while cursing the young man out for humiliating him in front of everyone. Damien had already expected this kind of reaction, so he decided to fan the flames even further and snidely remarked that he unfortunately failed to dislocate the brute's shoulder. His vision went dark with rage, and the wild beast motioned to draw his weapon as his dark mana circulated. With dual axes in hand, he assumed an offensive stance, ready to slice and dice the young man. Lady Chelsea tried to stop her champion, but her words were not reaching his ears anymore. He rushed towards Damien, eager to shred him to bits as painfully as possible and split his skull open. Before his mana could manifest itself into a full-blown attack, he was interrupted by a more dominant power. When his circulation stopped, Sir Guillaume immediately knew that someone had stepped in. Damien stood on business while the dukedom's guardian knight unleashed some of his energy, angered by the audacity of the outsider. Swinging a weapon so carelessly in front of the duke is a grave sin. The guardian knight imposed upon the wild beast and asked if he had a death wish. Guillaume felt all his animosity melt away as the old man's mana suppressed him. Damien was quite impressed with the pressure that the old knight could muster just from a basic aura release. No wonder he's a high-class knight. Out of respect for Lady Chelsea's dignity, the guardian knight would overlook this disrespect once. Still, he left a warning that this will be the last time the brute can act so callously. He doesn't believe in second chances. Feeling the cold embrace of the old man's aura leaving his body, Guillaume slumped down to the floor, huffing for air. With that settled, the Duke demanded everyone's attention. Judging by what he saw from this unruly commotion, it would be best for their house to keep Sir Damien as representative. Once again, Sir Horwitz protested that what transpired was not a fair match at all. He excused that Sir Guillaume Blackwing had yet to fully recover from his travels, giving Damien a clear advantage. The young man is starting to regret not slitting this toothpick's throat when he had the chance. In addition, he whined that Sir Guillaume is a knight versed in weaponry, and he should not be judged based on a brief hand-to-hand combat test. This time, Lady Chelsea backed his protest. She argued that they should not make decisions based on childish scuffles. An official duel must happen between the two. The Duke is starting to get irritated by the other camp moving their goalpost. Disappointed and angered by her daughter's demands, Adam struck his desk and yelled at her for being such an incompetent brat. Lady Chelsea was shaken to her core. After calming down, she stammered an apology for overstepping. The toothpick knight gritted his teeth and held his tongue on the sidelines. With an awkward silence hanging in the air, Damien raised his hand and addressed the Duke. Looking mischievous as ever, he asked if he could share something. Much to everyone's surprise, he accepted Lady Chelsea's proposal, a formal duel to determine who would represent the Duke. Since that is his wish, Duke Adam had no choice but to relent. Later that day, Victor is all over his young master, pestering him about accepting a needless duel when all he has to do is stay quiet instead of risking a loss. Ignoring Victor's nagging, they finally arrived at their destination, a workshop that the Duke personally recommended. Adam Goldpixie added a stipulation to the incoming duel. Since Damien's long sword was destroyed during the Horwitz fight, he ought to get a new weapon made at the Duke's smithy. In all honesty, he could probably beat Guillaume within an inch of his life with a training sword. But there's no reason to turn down the Duke's generosity. Free stuff is free stuff. When they entered the workshop, Victor relayed Duke Goldpixie's orders and asked him to collect a blade for the young master. Since the smithy was already notified in advance, they were invited to the arsenal. Inside was a lineup of high-quality blades in all shapes, forms, and sizes. Even someone like Damien, who had seen a fair share of legendary weapons, was quite pleased by the workshop's collection. Among all the glittering blades displayed in cases, only one firmly caught his attention. Seeing that he's interested in such a unique blade, the owner shared that it was commissioned by a valiant knight once employed under the Duke's family. Before the blade was finished, he had to leave for unknown reasons. The blade never reached the intended owner's hands. Interested, Damien asked if the knight provided some resonance steel for the forging process. He asked because the uniquely shaped sword resembles the signature blade of a swordmaster known as Sword Maestro. The thing looked like a tuning fork. The owner was quite shocked that the young man still picked the blade even after knowing that it was forged with something as finicky as resonance steel. Unlike other rare metals that amplify mana, resonance steel has a different property. It has the unique trait of repelling mana and generating waves. When asked for the blade's name, the owner tried his best to remember. The knight who commissioned the odd weapon dubbed it the Thousand League Sword. With that, Damien easily secured a brand new weapon that could amplify his power. As they were walking out of the workshop, someone approached them in the streets. Flanked by armed guards, the personal maid of Lady Chelsea, Rebecca, politely introduced herself. She relayed that the Grand Duchess wished to speak with Damien. It would be nice if he would spare the lady a moment to talk. Of course, Damien had no reason to accept such a sussy invitation. However, Rebecca insisted that the Grand Duchess holds more cards than one might expect. Maybe a conversation would do him good. That Chelsea girl will probably try to win him over with all kinds of persuasion. Since Damien has a few things he wants to confirm, he decided to play along. So, Rebecca led the way, and they eventually arrived at a restaurant personally run by the Grand Duchess. It's a high-end place that only accepts reservations from nobles. Rebecca emphasized that this meeting is important enough for Lady Chelsea to clear the entire place for the whole day, just so they can talk in private. The sussy maid opened an ornate gate and urged the young man to enter. The Grand Duchess is waiting inside. Admittedly, he was quite curious as to what kind of offer this lady would make to get him out of the picture. As soon as he entered the private room, his senses were assaulted by a hypnotic scent. Lady Chelsea poured herself a glass of wine with a single hourglass sitting on the table. With a bewitching smile, she invited Damien to sit with her. A single whiff of that pink stuff in the air, and I know some of you would have folded like a lawn chair on the spot. Even after noticing the sketchiness of this meeting, he sat his ass down and directly asked what she wants. Instead of talking about business right away, she asserted that they share a meal first. Not one to waste his time, he demanded that she lay her offer down on the table right away. Since he insisted, she relented. Lady Chelsea only has one request. Of course, that would be for Damien to step down as the family's representative. He accused the lady of not trusting in her champion's chances of winning against him, but she calmly explained that she has complete confidence with regards to Sir Guillaume coming out on top. It's just that she wants to save the man's strength for the real duel with the Marquisate house. It would truly be troublesome if he got injured from some meaningless duel, wouldn't it? For the sake of negotiating, Damien asked what he would gain by accepting such a big request. Lady Chelsea simply answered that he could name his price. Anything he wants is on the table. She only sees him as a countryside noble who would be happy with money, fame, or other materialistic stuff. This girl doesn't even bother hiding her arrogance and judgment. Still playing along, Damien argued that he could just get all those things from the Duke himself. She relented that while that might look like a good route to go down on now, isn't it better to be in good graces with the future Duke instead? Throughout their conversation, Chelsea's eyes kept darting down to the hourglass. She relayed her offer. If Damien wants to take it, he should go and talk to the Duke about backing out right away. As soon as the last grain of hourglass sand fell, the bewitching air intensified, and she ordered the young man to step down as the family's representative. Damien felt a wave of warmth and stimulation wash all over his body. Instead of falling prey to the blatant attempt at putting him under a spell, he definitively refused the offer. Expecting her sneaky maneuver to work, Lady Chelsea was confused that her demand was being denied by a bumpkin noble. Damien enjoyed seeing the spoiled brat squirm in her seat as she panicked at the allure scent's failure. The moment he entered the room, he recognized the black magic that induced false affection wafting in the air. It is commonly used to manipulate a target at will. Thankfully, he retained all his black magic knowledge from his previous life. That enchantment incense is quite hard to miss when you know what you're looking for. Based on the size of the room and the scent's concentration, anyone would become a slave within an hour of exposure. Thanks to the authority of greed, Damien simply absorbed everything without being affected. Deciding to have a little fun, he pressed the spoiled Duchess about her odd reaction to his refusal. She stumbled over her words and doubled down on giving him everything he wanted. Done with his fun, Damien turned his back and walked away. He doesn't need anything from this brat. She couldn't possibly give him what he's seeking in the first place. Desperate to keep the discussion open, she asked what this thing he's fighting for really is. Considering everything Damien has gone through, the only thing he desires is happiness for his family. His answer confused the bratty Duchess. She simply can't relate to someone who loves their family. Finally, he warned her to get Guillaume Blackwing ready and primed for the upcoming duel if he wants to survive. Pursing her lips, Lady Chelsea decided to take off the incentives and resorted to threats instead. Since he values his family so much, she flipped the script and alluded to doing something very unkind to Damien's family if he doesn't play ball. She swore to send people to absolutely crush the Hoxton household, completely erasing the insignificant family off the map. Before she could get every word of her ultimatum out of her rotten mouth, Lady Chelsea felt a tight grip suffocating her neck, nearly crushing her windpipe as her body hit the table. Even in such a perilous position, she still acted high and mighty, insulted that a country bumpkin dared to lay a hand on her. She demanded to be released, but she made the stupid move of threatening a former Death Knight's family. Hearing the commotion in the room, Lady Chelsea's guards rushed in. They swiftly drew their weapons, ready to cut down the boy who dared to endanger their Duchess. Damien controlled his anger and tossed the filthy witch away. In the blink of an eye, he grabbed a knife from the table, took the guards by surprise, and slit their throats in one fell swoop. The guards took a second to notice that something was wrong as the slits on their necks started bleeding. As they panicked and clutched their lethal wounds, Damien walked towards the exit. He only sliced their carotids lightly. If they apply some potion to the wounds in time, they should survive. As for this waste of space, Chelsea Goldpixie, nothing would please Damien more than severing her head here and now, but he will choose to restrain himself. Resorting to run-of-the-mill violence would be far too merciful a punishment for her stupidity. He would rather be around to see how horrible things will get for her in the very near future, instead of being an emotional executioner. While she was trying to catch her breath and the guards slowly bled out, her maid, Rebecca, entered the room. She quickly attended to her boss, making sure that she was all right. This girl must be deaf. She did not hear all the foreshadowing Damien had just dropped. She's focused on getting her bloody revenge instead. At the top of her lungs, she yelled the name Mustang Fury. Such a badass name belongs to this pale dumpling man. I was expecting an assassin or some shit. Lady Chelsea chewed out Mustang for what happened. She was promised that the allure scent would be immutable, but it did not work for Damien Haxon. Mustang reckoned that the kid must be one of those people with a natural resistance to black magic. The Grand Duchess has a zero-tolerance policy for excuses. She slapped the dog shit out of Mustang for putting her in such a humiliating position. As for Guillaume Blackwing, he was last seen at the tavern, claiming that he needed to cool off after everything that happened today. Hearing that her champion is getting drunk the night before a pivotal duel exasperated Chelsea even more. For one last time, she asked Mustang if their beast would win against that Hoxton kid. Of course, Mustang Fury vouched for Guillaume. That guy is Yulan's pride, after all. There has never been a knight more gifted for black magic than that man. Mustang asks the lady for a little more patience. Yulan is working hard behind the scenes to give her the gold pixie dukedom. As usual, she threatened to kill Mustang and everyone in Yulan if they failed to deliver on their promise. This girl has no other moves, bro. While she was blatantly discussing a collusion with a heretical organization, Damien was listening just up on the roof. Even while eavesdropping, this dude has to aura farm.